Happy Monday to you, diehards, degenerate gamblers, and MMA fans. How is everybody doing? Welcome back. This is the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy. The name's Clint. The show is powered by BetOpenly.com, and this is Superbook Sports. I am all messed up. This is Pub Sports Radio. I am just getting used to the new names of the sponsors, so I apologize. You're going to have to bear with me while I work through that. I'm still having a bit of a tough time. I should call her. No, how's everybody doing on a Monday evening? Welcome into the chat. We've got my guy Ethan Hershey already hanging out here with the best profile pick in the game. We've got Mike Harvey in the house. My man Dream, the Grateful Dude. Any action, Effie Mushroom VGO. We got Bufo on the beat, my guy Dixon Cider. How's everybody doing? Lou already hanging out. Rexley firing off the t-shirt. You love to see it. Not today, but you know, Rex, maybe we do another giveaway soon. You know, maybe we just did one, but maybe we run it back again sooner than later. What's up, Subhuman Gaucho? And none other than Uncle Weezy in the chat. I hope everybody's kicking some serious ass. As you know, this weekend, we got by just by the skin of our teeth, baby. We're wearing the baby blue shirt. I can't get too pumped up about it. We are rocking a 0.7 unit win for the weekend. That's right. 2 units up in PFL and 1.3 units down in the UFC. A win is a win. I will take it. I will celebrate every single weekend win. Last week, we did okay in the UFC and we lost ever so slightly in the PFL. We had to own that. It was a down weekend. This weekend, we get the up weekend. Little or not, I'm taking it. Unfortunately, at this stage of the game, usually I would recap the previous card a little bit, make mention of a couple past bets. Those of you who don't know, I went a little overboard last week, cheering on my girl, Jillian Robertson. I had a 2-unit bet on her on the money line. I put my $100 bet openly play up so that you guys could come, try and steal some of my cash. The 3 of you that accepted the bet did, in fact, steal my cash. And I made not one, but 2 drinking bets associated with Tabitha Ricci versus Jillian Robertson. One of those belongs to Killa Sta DFS on Twitter. The other belongs to this week's guest and co-host, Luke from Sparring with Reality Betting, who is rocking the Team Ricci hat. Luke, how you doing? You got to be feeling good.
Yeah, dude. Homegirl Tabitha, one of the OG members of the Simping with Reality team. Always have to support her with some merch. Yeah, dude. I thought it was a fun little proposition last week. Got everybody fired up, a little bit more invested in it. So yeah, dude, it was fun. I'm looking forward to watching you get a little intoxicated on the show. So we'll see how it goes.
You know what? I warned you. You might have to carry it a little bit towards the end of the show. We'll see how this goes. I haven't had dinner yet, and that's always a dangerous proposition. So for those of you who aren't on Twitter, first off, you should be. But if you aren't on Twitter, Luke reached out to me and wanted to do a shoey bet for the fight. I don't drink beer, guys. I don't drink beer. I had a horrible experience when I was younger. Can't stand the taste of it. Can't stand the smell of it. So we reached out to Paul Shaughnessy, king of the shoeys from the Dogger Pass podcast. And I said, what's the ratio shots to shoey? Because I'll take a drinking bet, but what's the ratio? And I think he said something ridiculous like 6 shots for 1 shoey. Paul's trying to kill me, Luke. He's trying to absolutely destroy me. So I agreed to 3. So it's 3 shots for me, 1 shoey for Luke. Unfortunately, Jillian doesn't know how to go forward. And every time she got close to having her hands on Ricci, decided to go ahead and back up and go back to striking range, which was just absolutely confusing to me. But then I got a second, option. Killer reached out over on Twitter and said, "Hey, how about a shoey bet? I want to get in on this." And I'm like, "Man, I can't do 2 shot bets." But fuck it. What the hell? Why not? So I agreed to it anyway. I said, I'm going to only do 2 shots for his, not the 3. So I owe you a grand total of 5 shots. And we called, Fireball and popcorn is our thing for a reason. I got the bottle right here. As you can see, it's nice and chilled. We're going to get the party started. Over the course of tonight's live show, folks, I will be drinking. And my wife's awesome diehard MMA pod shot glasses she got for me. But I owe you 5. And I think just to get the game started, we're going to start with 2. Cheers, everybody. Except I got to grab that little hair out of there because, believe it or not, I don't want to eat that. All right. There's 1. Cheers. And real quick, let's just get a second one hammered right on down the drain. No dose. There we go. Woo! It's been a minute. It has been a minute.
All right. I was actually thinking about maybe throwing on the Baby Shark theme song in the back, but I didn't know what that potentially would do to YouTube copyright things. So I passed on that. But
you and I had a very similar thought, Luke. I actually really wanted to do that too, but I looked into it and I think it's like 4 seconds. If you do something longer than 4 seconds, you end up getting flagged and taken down. So we appreciate you not doing that, because Pub would have some not so kind things to say to me if I got the channel tagged and taken down for the Baby Shark theme song. But there you go. We got 2 down, 3 more to go. This show's about to get interesting for you folks. I'm going to space them out just a little bit, so we'll hit the other ones up here in a minute. But thank you all for joining us on the show tonight. Luke, thank you for hanging out with us to talk UFC Vegas 76. We've already got 70 live viewers. Everybody, do me a favor. Hit the like button, smash. And Ethan, thank you. I do know the stream is like hiccuping and freezing, and I know people have been mentioning the audio has been sticking a little bit sometimes. That's a StreamYard issue, and I have found a solution for it. The problem is I actually have to swap to a new computer to be able to use the cord that should fix the issue. Fingers crossed, everybody. Technical issues should be ironed out here in a week or 2, so look forward to that. But do me a favor, like I said, hit the like button, sub if you haven't already. And the one thing I need to know, everybody in the chat, since we're having the battle of the simps, Luke, I need to know who the chat simps for. Who's your fighter that you simp over? Because we are changing gears, folks. We are no longer Jillian Robertson fan club. That's not true. Actually, we are. We're always going to stick by our girl. But thanks to Macy Barber winning by knockout at 4-1, cashing a big old fat juicy ticket for us like a monster in there, we simp Macy Barber here on this show now. That's going to be a thing moving forward. All right. Luke, as is tradition, I got to ask, how'd you do last weekend?
Yeah, I kept it pretty small, but I hit both of my plus numbers to kind of piggyback off of what you just said. I was on the under in Rebus Barber at plus 180. So that was kind of nice. I was giving a bit more credence to Rebus submission because I thought she might be able to get the fight to the ground and maybe make Macy pay for some of her poor mistakes in the past. But I also fully acknowledge that I thought Macy was pretty live to clock Rebus in that fight too. So I grabbed that at plus 180. Was pretty happy about that. Then I was actually on Chepe Mariscal at plus 140. Nice. So he came through. It was nice to get a little bit of that fade money on peak. And then I lost the under 1.5 in Brundage and Dumas. I actually still haven't watched that fight yet, so I'm not entirely sure what happened. And that one going the distance I thought was pretty shocking, let alone going over 1.5. So you might have
not going to like
shine some light on that one for me.
You're not going to like it. So Cody, God bless the man. He jumped Gilly 3 times, Luke. 3 times. Twice in the first round. Like, he kept trying to jump for the guillotine. And then he made some of the most classic Cody Brundage mistakes grappling and gave up top position, got reversed. And Cedric, I think, wanted to make a point. He wanted to like drive home his grappling chops because the only thing he was looking for was a rear naked choke. He could have gotten that fight stopped. I can't tell you how many times. Just refused to throw ground and pound. He stayed on top of Cody, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, elbows. Like this fight is over if you just throw elbows. And by the way, I did have a Cedric KO in like my sprinkle Hail Mary parlays, so I really wanted him to throw elbows. No. He just sat on top of him, and then whenever Cody would move, he would fish for the neck. Cody's way better at him than grappling, so he would shrimp out of it, and then he would go back to sitting on top of him. Like any ground and pound at all, and that fight is over, and he just refused.
Even early within the fight, too?
Yeah. It was that do what you gotta do to win type of fight mentality. Yeah, no, it was bad. It was awful.
But so I ultimately went 2-for-1 up 3.5 units. So it was a good week overall.
All right. You love to see it. And I am going to go ahead and pay off one more shot debt real quick here, and then we'll get into this week's breakdowns. I hope everybody in the chat is enjoying this. I am already feeling the effects of those first two shots. It's been a while since I've drank. I actually usually have a pretty decent tolerance. Not today, apparently. Oh, 3 down, 2 more to go. Luke, let's get into it, buddy. First fight of the night at UFC Vegas 76. We're powered here by BetOpenly.com. I will explain a little bit more about that later in the show. But once again, we are kicking off a night with Guram Kutateladze taking on Elves Brener. Now, I have talked about my guy Guram to the point that I'm sick of it, Luke. This poor man cannot find his way to the cage. I think it's visa issues, thank God. It's not like an injury situation again where he's not healthy enough to compete. He just can't get to the fight. He can't get into the States. So Guram, 12-3. He's one of my Georgian warriors. This guy is crazy well-rounded. You look at the fighters that they have brought him in to face for his first couple UFC fights, and in my opinion, that speaks volumes about just what they think of this man. His first 2 fights were Mateusz Gamrot and Damir Ismagulov. Like, he's already up in like the top 15, top 10, just getting started. Now, both those fights went to split, which, I mean, we can say maybe he should have done some things differently. Maybe he should have put his foot on the gas a little harder, what have you. But those are really tough fights, so you don't really lose any stock going to split with Gamrot or Damir. And then he's been booked with guys like Don Madge, Thiago Moises, Jamie Malarkey. Like, I think they're really trying to get him in the win column. He's the biggest favorite on the card this week, and I think probably for good reason. His opponent, Elves Brener, I'm still not quite sure what to make of. He's 14-3, and he won his UFC debut via split over Zhugov. And you guys know, I talked about this in the breakdown. Actually, Luke, it was beautiful. If you go back and you watch the podcast where I talked about this fight, I was like, guys, Zubaira is probably going to like left hook Larry this guy into oblivion, but it wouldn't shock me one bit if he dropped a split decision, because that's what Zubaira Tukhugov does. What did he do? He dropped a split decision and he got axed from the UFC because the guy has no sense of urgency whatsoever. Now, that's not to take anything away from Elves Brener. He did everything he needed to do. He's a shoot the box style fighter. He stuffed all 4 takedowns coming from Zubaira Tukhugov. He's got big hard leg kicks. He likes to flash that Muay Thai knee at you. He uses his legs to kind of set up his hands more often than not. They like to kick. Shoot the box likes their kicking game. But he's very active with the ground and pound when he gets up on top of people. Very strong top positional control, always looking to score, always ground and pounding. He does good work. And frankly, he got chin checked from Zubaira Tukhugov. And I know he's not the biggest power puncher in the world, but that left hand is actually pretty dangerous. He ate it really well over the course of that fight. So I'm pretty impressed with his durability, his ability to take shots. So, I mean, man, I got to go with my guy. I got to go with the Georgian warrior here in Guram Kutateladze, but I got I also feel like this line is maybe a little bit out of pocket. Like he's minus 600. He's a 6-1 favorite in this spot. I don't think Elvis Brener is a bum. I don't know if he's just necessarily going to roll right on through him in this spot. As much as I love Guram, it feels like the legend of Guram has grown beyond the guy's 1-1 UFC run. So I'm picking him to win, but I'd feel a whole lot more comfortable if he was like a minus 250. What do you think, man?
Yeah, so I was actually on the under in the Tuhugov-Brener fight as well. I thought because Tuhugov kind of had always shown that like random, like bursting type of power, and it's like short notice, big step up in competition. It was like around evens, and then there just wasn't a lot of merit to that. So I didn't feel really great about that with hindsight. But I did think Brener made a better account of himself than what I did expect coming in. But to your original point as well, Tuhugov kind of has his own problems with fighting close. I think he fought to like 4 splits or something prior to that, like 129-28. So I guess hindsight 2020, maybe it isn't as shocking as everything else. But yeah, I'm kind of right there with you as well. It's another spot where I do think it is kind of a levels fight. Obviously, I think Guram's better than Tuhugov. I think he's got better wrestling. I know Tuhugov's kind of known for his wrestling, but his like control has always been like really, really bad. And I think he's actually probably a better, in regards to Guram, is actually probably a better submission grappler. He's also a much more consistent boxer as well. So, these Georgian guys, they're just always tough as shit too. Like, I mean, yeah, it's not going to be easy to go out there and get them out of there. So I'm kind of with you as well. I think it's more of a levels fight dynamic too, but am I running to the window to pay minus 600 for it when Brener has proven that he's tough? I don't think he's been finished yet in his career. I could be wrong about that. Just kind of with that in and of itself, pretty big pass for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a complete pass. I can kind of understand what Teddy is saying here. Does Brener have a real path to victory outside of the sub? Just parlay up Guram and sprinkle a big number on Brener sub. I don't hate it. Frankly, I don't hate it. So, obviously, guys, we'll break down the fights as best we can for you. You do what you want to do with your own money, your big boys and girls. But I don't like parlaying favorites over 500 more often than not because it doesn't move the line much enough to make it really worthwhile. This is a spot where Guram should win if you want to throw him in like a 3-legger parlay to bring it down from minus 140 to even money. Go for it. I think that's fine. He should win, but at the same time, I don't think Elvis Brener is someone you just walk over. So, frankly, I would think that we go Guram by decision, Luke. Like, that's kind of the path I'm predicting here. I'm not sure he finishes the guy. What about you?
Yeah, I guess I would have to look back at what that line is. I'm not sure if it's decision or ITD what's favored necessarily, but depending on what that price is, that's probably what I would go. But like I said, I do think Kutateladze is actually a better submission grappler too, so he might be able to test that component of Brener's game if he does get going in the grappling. So he's got some power too. So either way, it's something I would probably look too small, but that's kind of where I'd be leaning.
Okay. All right. Glad we're on the same page there, folks. It's about to get off the rails. A hype killer MMA saying Max Payne. You love to see it. Yep. I'm being punished this week. We got Jesus joining us here in the chat. Thank you very much for hanging out on the pod, MMA Jesus. Next up, second fight of the night. Alexandr Romanov, the man who fell from grace, is taking on none other than Shanky Shank Blagoy Ivanov. Luke, did you know he got stabbed? He's been stabbed in a bar fight or something like that. I don't know. They talk about it every single UFC stream. It's to the point where like, we know. All right. Alexandr Romanov, 16-2. The man had all the hype in the world. And my guy Volkov absolutely smoked him. And I got to tell you, Luke, that was maybe one of the biggest mistakes I've made in my entire gambling career, is just not trusting my own guy. Like, Volkov has been my guy. I have made piles of money backing Alexander Volkov, and I doubted him against Romanov because of the grappling aspect of the fight. And I feel really bad for that. But he kind of got exposed in his last couple of fights. He's on a 2-fight losing streak. We found out he really can't strike. Like, he's got to get takedowns to be able to have a shot in the fight. And if he can't bully you physically, he's probably not going to do too well. He's still got that big man submission game, so you got to worry about it if he gets you down, if he gets on top of you. But these bigger plus heavyweights at the top end of the division, they're going to cause him a lot of problems, at least until his striking catches up, if it ever does. He will have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this spot, but Blagoy is he's like the MMA Iron Man for a heavyweight, dude. He's 19-5. He has never been finished in his long, illustrious career. I take that back. One finish, lost by sub. Guess who? My guy Volkov. That's the only guy that's ever finished this man, and it was by sub in Bellator all the way back in 2014. He's crazy durable. 36 years old, even though he looks like he's 42. Heavy on the feet, plods his way forward. Decent pop in his hands for being a big old guy, but he also just knows how to survive. He does the cage push thing. He'll grind you. He'll wear you down, make you fight his pace. He's 3-4 in the UFC, and he's 1-3 over his last 4. And quite frankly, the win over De Lima, highly questionable. Like I hit a live bet on him that night, Luke. I actually cashed a ticket on Blagoy Ivanov at like plus 230 or something stupid when he was down 1-0 to De Lima. I cashed that ticket, and I look back and I kind of actually feel almost a little bad. Like, I've never wanted to go back to a bookie and give them, their money back because they've gotten me plenty of times, but that one makes me go, it's like, oh, my bad, bro. Like, I got away with one there, and that's his only win in his last 4 fights. Now, handicapping aside, this feels like a get-right spot. This feels like the UFC going, okay, you took 2 L's in a row. Let's give you a guy that you can maybe beat, get you back on track. He's a young guy. He's got some upside. Everybody's a fan of him. Blagoy really has just been kind of hovering in the middle of the heavyweight division for his entire career. And as I mentioned, with his record, has not overly impressed. We've got minus 135 on Alexandr Romanov, plus 115 on Blagoy Ivanov. And I would say that pre-flop, this is Romanov. Like, I got to pick Romanov here in this spot. You're going to give him another big lumbering dude. He probably can handle that big lumbering dude that'll not fight at a pace that'll wear him out. However, it's live bet Blagoy Ivanov season all day, Luke. If we get to round 1.5 and Blagoy is 2.5, 3-1, but he's gotten taken down 3 times, has not been tapped, and gets back up to his feet and starts punching Romanov in the face, you live bet the shit out of Blagoy Ivanov, because that's what happened with Marcin Tybura. That's how this man loses, is when people come back in the second and the third round and bust him up. So I'm kind of thinking Alexandr Romanov might actually be able to do what he does, get him down, get a sub. He's the bigger, stronger, more physical man. But I need to see the face-offs, Luke. I need to see that we got skinny, motivated Romanov. Because when we got skinny, motivated Romanov, that man was a monster. And then the guy that showed up against Alexander Volkov that put all that weight back on was big old flabby guy, 40 pounds heavier. That guy ain't doing shit. That guy's got 2 minutes of cardio. So if I see flabby Romanov, it's just hands off. We live bet Ivanov if we like the spot. If we get skinny Romanov, we back the hell out of Alexandr Romanov and then look to hedge out live on Blagoy Ivanov. That's the move. That's my plan. What do you think, Luke? And while you're talking, I'm going to go ahead and get another shot going.
Yeah, so I've never been the biggest Romanov guy, even when he was kind of like on the come up and just like beating the shit out of everybody. I've always been pretty skeptical about the guy. And my number one issue with him, outside of what you mentioned before, that his striking sucks, to be completely honest, he still has not shown that he can wrestle hard for an extended period of time ever. Even if you go back to his fight with Juan Espino, where there was like the weird nut shot ending. Don't remind me about that fight. There was like the weird nut shot.
I lost so much money that night, Luke. The Juan Espino decision was brutal. What's up, Razor?
Yeah, and so, but like the thing there was, and why that kind of happened, yeah, he technically hit him in the nuts, but not really. What we kind of can extrapolate now, going back on that, is that Romanov was completely cooked, and he had nothing left in that third round, and he probably would have gotten finished, to be honest, if he didn't take that out. And, we obviously saw him 10-8 Tybura in the first. He gassed, and then, well, that fight probably should have been a draw because he probably should have gotten the 10-8, but he didn't get the 10-8 on 2 judges' scorecards. So then Tybura won the last 2, and he won the fight. And then even, against Volkov, I have never seen in my entire handicapping career someone legitimately gas out in 1 minute before. I've seen people gas out in like 5 minutes. He was legitimately exhausted after 1 minute. Like after those like takedowns he was shooting and Volkov was stuffing and they separated, he was
so
like
weird.
he was just after 1 minute, he was completely done. So that's
Was
just
that
kind of
like,
my thing.
Luke, did he just show up for a paycheck? Like, even for Romanov, he has never gassed out that fast before. What the hell was that?
I don't know. And so I think that there's some merit to what you're saying in terms of if you are betting this fight, it might be actually a beneficial thing to keep peeping the, Romanov IG or waiting for weigh-ins, because if this guy comes up like, he hasn't really been training at all or whatever, and you're laying chalk on a guy who has 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes of cardio at best, I mean, that's not a betting position that I would want to put myself in personally. And to your point, what Blagoy does, it's not the prettiest. He hasn't, been consistent in terms of like overtly separating himself in his fights. But even some of these like decisions he's lost, like are arguable, like the Derek Lewis fight. If Sakai didn't grab the fence in the third round, he probably beats him too. Like Ivanov is just much more proven over the course of 15 minutes. And actually does come from a Sambo background. So he's traditionally not like an easy guy to just toss around all over the place. His third round against Tybor is pretty alarming in relation to this matchup because he pretty much got controlled for that entire third round. But like overall, I mean, guys aren't just like taking down Blagoy left and right and tossing it around. Obviously, Romanov is a guy that's capable of doing that. But my point is if he doesn't do traditional Romanov where he's able to, throw Blagoy around and pound him out or hit some shitty sub, Blagoy's probably going to just be there. And if Romanov's not there really anymore, then once again, do you want to have, a minus 140 ticket in your pocket? So I'm kind of more looking to your angle and just looking to live bet Ivanov, but I would still be a little bit more inclined to even just take him given what we saw in the Volkov fight, where if you just took a live bet Volkov angle in that, you would have been out of money because he ended up finishing him in the first. So, I don't necessarily know if it's that black and white necessarily.
Blagoy doesn't have the offensive firepower that Volkov does. He's not nearly as big either. You know what I mean? Like he's going to have to work his way back in on that fight.
The thing about that fight, though, it's not like Volkov was like really beating him up at space. It was more that like Romanov just got tired and he like flopped down, and then Volkov got on top of him, and just like Volkov doesn't historically get on top of people and pound people out. Volkov's beating people up on the feet. So
he also broke his face with like one punch.
Yeah, but I don't know. To me, it's a dog or pass situation. I have zero interest in laying chalk on someone with terrible cardio. So
I like it, man. That's, you know what? I don't talk about the God-given rules of the Die Hard MMA podcast anymore very much. I probably should bring those up again, but never bet a guy with a bad chin and never bet a guy with bad cardio. Those are two of the big ones. We always try. Now, rules are made to be broken. Every once in a while, you'll find an angle where, shoe fits. You can weasel your way around it. But those are definitely things you want to watch out for. And Romanov has made himself a sketchy operator when it comes to that cardio claim. So I can't blame anybody for not wanting to get behind him here. That said, I still think he's more than capable of throwing people around in a cage. He's just freakish when it comes to his ability to pick up 265-pound men and then sling them 10 feet across the cage. So I think he can win this fight early, and then if he doesn't, I will absolutely fade him as the fight stretches on. So I'm kind of glad we see eye to eye here. Blagoy, I think, honestly, Luke, like I know he doesn't have the greatest run going in the UFC, but he competes like with everybody. He is just always in there. I think he's kind of underrated as far as what that guy is capable of. This could be a live bet spot for me.
Yeah, like I said, man, it's not the prettiest run, but I mean, he went out there and beat a guy like Tai Tuivasa. He outstruck a guy like Tai Tuivasa. He
took everything he had to offer.
Arguably beat Derek Lewis. Arguably beat Augusto Sakai. Minus a few different things. Maybe he should have lost to De Lima, but it's like he's a guy, like I said, that's just reliable to be there. Where on Romanov, he's not necessarily reliable to be there past 7.5 minutes. That's just my overall point.
That's fair. All of that is fair. I like it, man. I like it. Shout out my guy in the chat, Razor Sharp Picks. It is absolutely shot time. I am 4 deep already, and I'm feeling it, by the way. I am armed with a bag of nacho cheese Doritos, so I can stay, and not getting myself in trouble. And I also have my hydro flask of water. So I do apologize, you guys, because normally I don't eat or drink on the show, but when the fireball is flowing, you kind of got to do what you got to do to be able to stay afloat. We got legendary status here in the chat. Kyle Marley hanging out, talking shots, and I'm already double clicking on shit because I'm feeling it, Luke. All right. So I hope everybody is having a good time. Andrew G recognizing the fireball, and no, dirty rag. I'm not a drunk. I'm drinking for the first time in a long time tonight, actually. Mushroom, I apologize. If you know what, send me receipts. I'll buy you a new computer screen. I didn't mean to break it. I know I cheersed that fireball glass a little tough for you there. So if I broke your screen, I do apologize. We have to shout out the new member. We've got Sean Higgs becoming a member here at Pub Sports Radio. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. This Dorito is for you, my friend. There you go. That's for you. All right. Next up, Joanderson Brito is taking on Westin Wilson, the wild Westin Wilson. All right. Sorry, I should not have eaten that Dorito before I started the intro of the next episode. Joanderson Brito. You guys, this man is uncorked violence. Like, that's all he does. He's insane. 14, 3, and 1. 5 wins by knockout. 7 wins by sub. Most of those subs came from knocking a dude's head halfway off before he grabbed their neck. Like, the club and sub is always an option for Joanderson Brito. He's coming off a round 1 sub win over Lucas Alexander. You look at what he did to Andre Fili. My God, Luke. Like, man, I think I bet Andre Fili that night. The whole thing for me with Joanderson Brito is you got to be able to survive that early onslaught, extend the guy. Maybe you can expose him a little bit later on, drag him a little deeper into the fight. Take care of him in rounds 2 or 3. Win a decision. Those are all great options. And I thought somebody who's technically superior, like Andre Fili, would be able to do that. Nope. You slip up once with Joanderson Brito, you're dead. He puts 100% into everything he does. And I mean, we're talking body lock takedowns. He's another guy like Romanov that'll pick you up and sling you across the cage. Whatever it takes to get you to the mat. But it's all muscle. And most people can't really contend with that muscle. He has big looping hooks, big overhands, that strong body lock that I mentioned, the slam takedowns. Everything is done to hurt you. Now, Westin Wilson, 16-7. He's making his UFC debut, and you know what? He's also got a 100% finish rate. 5 KOs, 11 submissions. This guy's slick on the mat, Luke. His back takes are really, really good. He's got these long, lanky, skinny arms, kind of like me. And he does a good job of finding the back and getting those rear naked chokes with those things because it's hard to defend when you've got really long, lanky, skinny arms. It slides under the neck really well. It's kind of fun. 1 knockout loss, 4 sub losses, though. He's kind of the opposite here. That 100% finish rate is matched by, getting finished quite a bit. I'll be honest with you, Luke. I think Westin Wilson is the new Jordan Wright. I think this guy's being brought in for fun, exciting fights. He's going to finish a couple people, and then he's going to get drilled a couple of times. You look at his opponents, rough level of competition. 8-5, 4-3, 9-19, and he lost to an 11-9 guy via round 1 KO. Like, that's the level of competition he's facing, and that's the level of competition that he's losing to. Honestly, he uses his range really well. He's got a long 1-2 down the pipe. He's decently good at range. But he's there to get countered. When he extends on like that 1-2 punch down the pipe, if he connects, it's all gold. But he's slow on the reload. And I've seen some people tag him coming back from that long, lanky right cross. I think Joanderson Brito is going to counter this guy. And honestly, I just think he's going to nuke him. Like, he's going to be a big favorite in this spot. And you got to go inside the distance with Brito because KO and sub, he doesn't really pick one or the other. He takes what his opponents give him. Like I mentioned, if he rocks you, he'll jump on your neck. If he KOs you flat, it's all gravy. I think this is a round 1 Brito spot, Luke. What are you doing here, man?
It's just so funny you said Jordan Wright because that was honestly like what this guy just reminds me of. Like, even
right?
Like fighting style a little bit. Obviously, Wright was never really known as like a massive jiu-jitsu guy necessarily, but he's that's this Wilson guy's like archetype. He's a lanky karate jiu-jitsu guy. And it's something I've just kind of talked about for years now, that like being a lanky karate jiu-jitsu guy is like just a really bad base for modern MMA, unless you're like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who you know can just like play the game elite. But I mean, just so few guys can. Honestly, I think what the primary merit to this Wilson guy is that he's massive at 145. He's like
He's long.
6 foot. He's like 6 foot tall with like a 74-inch reach. Like he's got the build of like a welterweight almost at 45. So he's going to have a pretty big size advantage here. But yeah, in terms of like overall skill, you kind of hit the nail on the head. You know, Brito's just a ball of energy who's just going to come out and sling heavies. And, you know, if you're not ready for that, this Wilson guy just has all the elements of tall man's defense. And I think Brito's probably going to put him down. To your point, Brito's got club and subs on his record too. This guy's been submitted multiple times as well. So yeah, I think Brito's probably going to go out there and torch him, and just kind of highlighting on what
out touchy feely. So it's
with
not
a head
an
kick
easy
too.
thing to do. What'd you say?
I said that was also with a head kick.
Yeah, like I mean, come on. It takes a head kick from Yair, you know, potentially future champion material, Yair Rodriguez. That's what it takes to knock this guy out. And Brito one-punched him. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the new kid's dead. I really do. There's not many squash matches in the UFC. I'm not sure why this fight is happening, because it really, I don't know, maybe he's just getting his UFC initiation jumped in and he'll win his second fight. But I think he's kind of a dead man walking here on this one, I'll be honest. Okay, next fight that we want to talk to you know what, yeah, Luke, I'm already struggling, so I might as well get number 5 here for you guys. Just bite it off. Let's get it done. Number 5 down the tubes. I gotta tell you guys that Dorito was really tasty when you're already feeling it. And yes, those of you in the chat that have pointed out that I'm feeling it, I am absolutely feeling about it. Teddy, no fireball on the keyboard. We keep our computers clean, all right? Like, we do not spill on the keyboard. Absolutely not. Cheers, everybody. It burns a little less every time. All right. Thank you, everybody. We do have 133 live viewers. This is Pub Sports Radio. This is the Die Hard MMA podcast. If you don't know Luke, you should. We forgive him for wearing the Tabitha Ricci hat. The show is brought to you by BetOpenly.com, and I really hope I can get to that promo when we get there. I'm gonna have I had this whole thing planned out for walking you guys through it. I'm gonna struggle through that today, let me tell you. Next fight up, we've got Ivana Petrovic taking on Luana Carolina. And if you've been watching this show for any number of episodes or whatever, I've talked about it before. Luke, I've got this weird little addiction to these scrappy underdog fighters. These fighters that nobody believes in, the fighters that everybody thinks is throwaway garbage. Those are the ones I like for some reason. And that's, usually I end up finding the value in them once and cashing a big fat underdog ticket on them. And then I lose the next 2 or 3 in a row because I expect them to keep that going, and they don't. They're not capable of it. So that's, for whatever reason, Luana Dread Carolina is my girl. I like her. It's that whole situation. I like her a lot. Just in general, I think she's underrated. I think she's still developing. She's 8-4, but she's doing it on the biggest stage in the world. She's developing in front of all of us. The UFC is bringing in Ivana, who's 6-0, undefeated, just shiny coat of paint on her. Looks like a killer. She's got a good, solid Instagram game. For those of you who want to go check that out, she's got a good Instagram game. She trains at ATT. She was the Aries flyweight champion. Tall drink of water. Physically strong. She's kind of heavy and plodding on her feet. She's got a nice long jab. She fades out of range really well. So when you start throwing at her, she does a good job with her head movement, getting away. She's a little elusive. But Luke, she's a little slow, I noticed. Like, she's got that tall girl thing where it's like, somebody mentioned a couple weeks ago, there's a stat with like men, when you've got a certain threshold of reach advantage, you do well. With women, there's a tipping point where it's the opposite, where if you got a certain threshold of reach advantage, it turns into a negative. And I think the key for that, and this is just, my brain talking. I don't have any stats to back this up, but I've talked about it a couple different times on the show and we've taken advantage of it. It's the speed. If you have somebody who's shorter, who's quicker, who's very lithe, they end up getting inside your range and hitting you when you can't even get your guard back because you extended. Bea Malecki is a good example, I feel like, of somebody like that. And that's kind of what Ivana strikes me as. Like, don't get me wrong, she's not bad to that extent. I actually think she can overcome that weakness. But that is something that I've seen in some of her previous fights, is that she's a little slow on the reload, which leaves her there to be hit. She's shown some really good fight IQ, though, and that's something you want to bet on, not bet against. She kind of reminds me of like a female Neil Magny. She's not incredible on the feet, and she does everything she can to get into the clinch, and then she just kind of mauls you from there. Great head position. She'll grind you up against the fence. Good body lock trips. She's got great timing on her level changes when she does decide to like shoot for an actual takedown, but she's always looking for her ground game. She has nasty ground and pound from top position. She's got some elbows, Luke. She's got some serious elbows on her, and we've seen a wide variety of takedowns from this girl. Singles, doubles, body locks, trips. Like, she's got a lot of different ways to get her fights to the floor, which you gotta love, quite frankly. 1-inch reach advantage. And then Karolina. She's got a really opportunistic submission game that's obviously a work in progress. She's got a couple subs on her record, and she keeps getting close. There have been a couple times on the video you watch her where she'll attack a sub, and it's just not quite there. She can't quite get it. Her key is the Muay Thai. She is a really solid Muay Thai striker. She's coming off a split decision loss against JoJo Wood. Frankly, she did really well in that fight, Luke. She landed over 100 significant strikes against JoJo, and that was kind of a revamped, reinvigorated JoJo Wood. And you don't want to go Muay Thai versus Muay Thai against JoJo, if I'm being honest. But she's got really powerful knees in the clinch. She's got great balance. She does tend to throw some loopy punches from range, but her hands are accurate. They're fast. And I think she's a bit of a live dog here in this spot. She's got 78% takedown defense. When she fought Lupi Godinez, Luke, she held her to 2 of 15 on her takedowns. And that's Lupi's whole thing, is taking people down. JoJo actually landed 2 takedowns on her, but they were like Muay Thai dumps. You know what I mean? Where they like kick the knee out and stuff like that, where she kind of dropped her. It wasn't a real takedown. It wasn't a double leg. It wasn't a single leg. She didn't like shoot in on her and get her to the floor, but she got credited for those 2 takedowns. Technically speaking, this is kind of a step down in competition for Luana, in my opinion. And at the current line, I feel like maybe she's a little bit live here in this spot. You have got this girl making her UFC debut at minus 230. Plus 185 on Luana Karolina. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, Luke. I want to hear your thoughts, but basically my whole thing about betting Luana, if I were to, I haven't yet. If I was going to bet Luana, it would come down to one thing, and that's what happens if she can't get the takedown. Because if this fight doesn't hit the floor, Luana's miles ahead of this girl on the feet. And I mean, it's not even close. Like you go back and, people like laugh at Luana because she got meme KO'd by Molly McCann. She was starting to take that fight over. Like, Molly dumped the tank in round 1 and could not finish Luana Karolina. And with nothing left in the tank, Luana was starting to punch her way back into that fight in round 2. And it wasn't until the Mimi spinning back fist that actually like changed the course of that fight. I think Luana's got some live dog in her hair this week. Luke, am I crazy? What am I drunk? I made these notes when I was sober, by the way. So yes, I'm drunk, but am I insane for thinking we've got a live dog on our hands? What do you like here?
No, I don't think you're actually insane. I mean, the basic breakdown of the fight for me is that it is kind of a striker versus grappler situation. But I agree with you, man. And going in, I think I watched all 6 of Ivana's fights. She's just not a very good striker, in my opinion. She's really awful. Slow. Pretty much all she has is like, she'll throw a 1-2 and a low leg kick. And she just kind of like spams that on repeat. But once again, it's very predictable. It's very slow. She kind of needs girls to also stand right in front of her to even have any sort of success doing that. And the thing with Karolina is that, like, she's a girl that's capable of landing like over 100 significant strikes in a fight. And you brought up her Muay Thai background. She can land elbows within the clinch. Her shots, I think, just come much quicker. They take much more of an impact. I think she's much more consistent to throw. So I guess put it this way, if you said that there was no takedowns in this fight and these girls went out there and had a 15-minute kickboxing match, I would probably make like Karolina 70% in that, if I'm being completely honest. But obviously that's not the reality of the situation. Petrovic is going to come out here and look to shoot takedowns. And she traditionally has been pretty strong in top positions, but she's also lost it multiple times. And one thing I've kind of noticed in quite a few of her fights, where like her entries and getting in and like trying to take girls down early, she tends to actually really struggle in doing that. She's a, I think how I classified it in my breakdowns, she kind of is like a Roxanne Modafferi in the sense that she is like a attritional wrestler. Like her like accuracy per takedown is kind of shit, but she's just going to shoot like with impunity. So then it's just like over time that kind of gets and grinds on girls. And then she's eventually able to get to mount, or she's able to get to the back. But once she does get to those dominant positions, she does tend to finish girls more often than not. And that's one of my main takeaways. But it's not like she's a girl that shoots takedowns and people just go down. There's been a couple scenarios where that's been the case, but I mean, generally girls are like stuffing her takedowns like early on in fights. And that's where I think Karolina is kind of a live dog in the sense. But the one thing I can't get out of my head for Karolina is her getting knee barred in like 2 minutes by Ariane Lipski. I actually bet Luana Karolina in that fight, which might go down as like one of my worst bets of all time. But it's just like, I know that's kind of a very non-conventional submission. But her grappling is still definitely a little bit suspect. Although she was able to reverse position on Polyana Yana and, edge out that greasy fight. I cashed a plus 400 Luana Karolina decision ticket in that one. So yeah, it kind of comes down to like what your threshold is of how often you think Petrovic can get takedowns and can she get into dominant position on Karolina. Because if she does, there is actually a chance she covers the price, but there's also another real scenario where she does really struggle to get Luana down and Luana just like boxes her up within this fight. One sneaky betting angle, though, I kind of actually like better. I kind of like the under 2.5. It's close to like plus 200. Like I said, I think if Petrovic gets stuck on the outside here, Karolina's probably going to hit her a lot. We've also seen Petrovic drop twice, one with a big kick off of a takedown entry.
Elbow.
That was another one. She got dropped with an elbow in the clinch. Karolina's a Muay Thai girl that's going to do that shit. And she got dropped with a like Marlon Moraes, Aljamain Sterling type of scenario where she kind of shot in for a takedown and the girl threw a kick at the same time and just put her on her butt. If people remember, Luana Karolina dropped Priscilla Cachoeira with a really nasty head kick back in the day. So I just think there's potential scope for Karolina to hurt Petrovic on the feet. And like I said, if Petrovic is able to get into dominant positions on Karolina, I think she's pretty live to finish from there. So I think the under 2.5 or on plus 200 on what's a pretty low level fight where both girls have technically paths to finish and what should be a pretty high action fight in either realm seems like there might be some meat on the bone there.
Are you talking violence, Luke? Are you saying violence might be an option here on Saturday?
I am.
I like it. I like it. I like it a lot, man. I agree. I think that I might end up having my way with a bet on Karolina. Let's see where this line goes. I want to see if we can get to 2-1, because if we can, that's a smash. Plus at 185, I think is fine. I would be more than happy to take that line right now. But we'll see where this goes. And I don't mind the violence angle whatsoever. I like that a lot, Luke. Good job pointing out the drops too, because I remember watching that elbow drop and then I just kind of forgot to make a note about it. So good call. Reminded me on that. I should probably make a note so I don't forget, because I'm kind of fucked up.
I mean, just real quick, generally, I mean, getting dropped twice on the regional scene with only 6 pro fights, that should be pretty alarming if you're someone who's looking to back a minus 225 favorite.
She's not the normal 6-0 in my opinion, man. I'll be honest. Like, we see a lot of these like undefeated women coming in, and I'd be more scared if she was from like the Brazilian regional scene, if I'm being honest, because I've been fooled by Tatiana a couple of times, and they're these girls that come over from Brazil that are just suddenly UFC caliber the second that they get here after looking awful on tape. I'm suspicious of this one. I kind of think she's maybe a fraudulent 6-0. We'll see. We'll see on Saturday. But I think the experience of Luana might actually pay off here this week. That's a dog I got my eye on. Got to ask, though, Pepe Silva? The Pepe Silva? Like Pepe from Twitter? Buddy, like if you're already on Carolina, you love to hear it. I love to hear it. Thank you for hanging out and watching the show. Guys, real quick, I'm looking at the likes here. We got over 170 live viewers here on the show, and there's 49 likes. 49. That's, first off, I'm a little disappointed. Secondly, I'm a little insulted. Thirdly, I've already paid off my 5-shot debt. As you can tell, I'm feeling it a little bit. I'll do another shot if you guys can get me to 75 likes. And if you can get me up to 100 likes, I will be tempted to throw you another one. So if you guys just want like straight up drunk Clint on stream tonight, yep, Mike Harvey's got the idea. Smash the like button. You guys keep on hitting the like button, and maybe I just keep doing shots. So let's go ahead and get after it. Next fight up, we are now talking about, I forgot to switch the cue over. Next up is Yana Santos taking on Karol Rosa. And this is Yana Kunitskaya, formerly. Now she is Mrs. Thiago Maheta Santos. And you know what, Luke? I got to tell you, I had this whole thing set up. I had this whole thing planned and ready to go. I was going to do the breakdown, and then I was going to mention this at the end. Frankly, I don't think I'm mentally capable of setting it up the right way right now for it to be really funny. Thiago Santos just popped for PEDs, folks. He got suspended from the PFL for popping. And if you go onto Yana Santos's Instagram, she's got these weird little bumps on her abs. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying anything, but I feel like that's a little suspicious. The man got banned for
tinfoil hat, bro.
Yes, tinfoil hat. Let's go. That's what's up. She's got little bumps all over her abs, and her husband just went down for PEDs. And you guys have already gotten me to 78 likes. So I owe you a shot. We hit 75 and we did it in a hurry. Get me to 100 and we'll consider doing another one. I'll even do it with the hat on, Luke. I'm going to leave it on for the people. Good work, everybody. Let's go. All right. So, getting down to the actual nuts and bolts here of this fight. Yana Santos is on a 2-fight skid, Luke. She did the whole new mom thing, and I'm telling you, like, not to, again, I say this every time. I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. The new mom fade prints money. If one of these women takes off, has a baby, and then comes back, that first fight back, they're just never the same. The amount of physical changes they go through, the amount of, emotional and mental changes they go through becoming a mom, they don't have it the way they did when they come back. Some of them are able to learn it back. Some of them are able to work back into it, and they do fine after that. But that first fight back is always rough. Yana's 0-2 coming back since the new mom fade. She got KO'd brutally from Ivana, and then she got absolutely schooled by Holly Holm. Now, those are high-ranking opponents, right? Like, you can't really hold that against her. Holly Holm still just fucks up everybody, frankly. And Ivana might be the hardest hitter in the division now that Amanda Nunes has retired. So hard to hold that against her. But at 14-7, Yana Santos is kind of reminding me a little bit. She's just kind of journeyman at this point. She was never great really to begin with. She's been finished a bunch, 3 knockout losses, 2 sub losses, and she's 2-3 in her last 5. And I mean, before she took the break to have the baby, like, she got flatlined in round 3 and by Aspen Ladd, who's struggling over in the PFL nowadays. So I'm not impressed with Yana Santos, period. Like, she's okay at everything. She's well-rounded. She's not great anywhere, but I think she's fragile. I think she's breakable. And look, this is a short notice fill-in. Her opponent dropped out. She fights at 135. This fight with Karol Rosa is at 145 because she's coming in here on short notice. Now, Yana's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here in this spot, but she's got a 45% takedown defense rating. Karol Rosa is 16-5. She's got fast, accurate hands. She's really aggressive. She's technical on the feet, and she does most of her work in boxing range, but she's deadly in the clinch too. She's got a good BJJ background on her. I think she's a black belt. She did get kind of slowed down by Big Norm And Norma hits hard, man. Norma Dumont absolutely cracks. So she kind of got backed up on that. Her volume got muted a little bit. She got cage pushed. That's kind of just a Norma Dumont fight, right? Like you can't expect much different in that spot. But she's got a bad habit of mirroring her opponents. She fights close with everybody. It's almost like Angela Hill, like where she'll go just kind of tit for tat, 1-for-1. She doesn't really distance herself from her opponent, and that's really the big problem with her. But the thing I like about Karol Rosa, Luke, is she's just 28 years old. She's still technically really young. She's not in her prime yet. She's not in the prime of her career yet. She still has room to grow, room to improve, room to blossom. And you go back and you watch that Dumont fight, dude, she knocked her down flat on her ass in the third round. Like people, I feel like that was a bad scorecard. I thought Karol Rosa won that fight. And you look at MMA decisions, and I actually think it was more for Rosa than it was for Dumont. Obviously, those people aren't real judges. They're just MMA media outlets, so we can't like weight that too much. But I feel like Rosa actually won that fight. She should have gotten the nod for it, in my opinion. I just worry about her lacking a sense of urgency. The thing here is I think she's going to be bigger. I think she's going to be stronger. I think she's going to be faster. I think her killer instinct is better. She is younger. Everything in this fight points in the direction, in my opinion, of one Karol Rosa. And for whatever reason, money is flying in on Miss Yana Santos. This line has been crashing since it opened, and I'm just waiting, Luke. I'm waiting. I'm gonna bet Karol Rosa. I am absolutely unequivocally going to put my money on Karol Rosa on Saturday because, frankly, I think she knocks out or submits Yana Santos. But I need the best number I can possibly get. Right now, you can get Karol Rosa at -160. And see, this is what I'm talking about. I almost pulled the trigger, Luke. I was this close to pulling the trigger at -165. It's still going down. People keep on betting Yana Santos. She's a +130 underdog here in this spot right now. And frankly, I just don't get it. She's fighting up a weight class. She's fighting a younger opponent. Karol Rosa has been criminally underrated. And I think she's going to punch Yana's head into the canvas on Saturday. What do you got here, Luke? Again, tell me if I am insane, but I'm ready to lay the wood, man. I want -150. If I can get down to -155, -150 in that ballpark, this is a big bet for me. I like Karol Rosa a lot.
I think the two primary concerns on the Rosa side is that this is a short notice fight for her on 2 weeks notice. So that needs to kind of be taken into consideration off the top. And then I would say the number one big concern I have for her is that Yana's pretty good in the clinch. She likes to just force girls there, and she'll be incredibly active from there as well. And we saw, some struggles there with Rosa in the Dumont fight, even against Landsberg. Obviously, McMahon wrestle fucked her, but that's not really like overtly transparent. But my primary concern for Rosa is one, like I said, short notice, that maybe her cardio isn't necessarily where it should be for this fight, or that Yana just drags this into a gross, disgusting clinch battle. That's my two primary concerns. But kind of to your point, and why I do agree with Rosa being the favorite, I think, I don't want to say she's more consistent to throw on the feet because Yana's pretty active, but I think she's more consistent to throw punches, where Yana throws like a lot of peppering, like leg kicks and stuff. And we've seen Yana just get like really blasted on the feet multiple times. Chris Cyborg, you go back to the third round against Marion Renault. That was one of the most nasty like nose breaks I've seen in a long, like her nose was like over here, like no exaggeration. Like when it's one thing I've noticed with Santos, it's like when striking wise, like she's looking pretty decent at space when girls let her kind of dance around and make noises, kind of like Caitlin Chukagian. Like if you just kind of let the girl dance around, make noises, throw kicks, the punches here and there, she looks pretty decent. But when girls say fuck it and they decide to bite the mouthpiece and come forward on her, they are cracking her. Because it's actually funny too, if you go back to the Aspen Ladd fight, it's in between the second and third round where Jim West, the corner of Aspen Ladd, he's just yelling at her. He's like, you're not being aggressive enough. And he's yelling every single expletive in the world that Aspen Ladd saying, yep. I want you, when that bell goes ding, ding, I want you to fly across the cage and I want you to hit this girl as hard as you can. What did she do? She went out there, she flew across the cage, hit the girl as hard as she did, dropped her, got on top of her and finished her right away. We obviously saw, Irina Aldana go out there and clock her, as well. Like, she's just a girl that she does not handle pressure well at all. And we've seen
that's all it takes. You just got to step on the gas. She crumbles.
Yeah. As long as Karol Rosa doesn't do what she did kind of against DeMont and just stands there and kind of gives her this methodical pitter patter range of fare, and she steps on the gas and goes forward and throws a high volume of strikes, I think she looks pretty good on the feet. Additionally, with that, Yana's not very good on bottom as well. Like, she's been finished with ground and pound multiple times. I thought Ketlen Vieira won that fight. I don't care about all the little peppering shots from bottom. She got controlled for like over 60% or like 66+% of that fight. I thought Ketlen Vieira won. We just saw Holly Holm, wrestle F her. Karol Rosa is the better wrestler, in my opinion. So with all that being said, I think it's a decent spot for Rosa if she can just kind of avoid a couple of those things I said. Hopefully she doesn't gas because of short notice. Hopefully she can avoid a disgusting clinch battle from Yana, or she can avoid just standing there at range and not throwing punches. If she doesn't do either of those three things, I think she probably looks pretty good.
Okay. I will take it, Luke. I will take it. I like Karol Rosa. I'm probably going to end up with more money on her than I should because she is a little bit ever so slightly untrustworthy sometimes. But I think I'm just full fade Yana Santos. I don't care about the PEDs. She'll pop. This will get turned over to a no contest if she wins. But I think that I'm going to fade Yana Santos until I have a reason not to. So I'm going to be looking at Karol Rosa on Saturday, just waiting for the best line we can possibly get. I'm looking at the likes, Luke. We got 94. 6 more likes, and y'all get rewarded with another shot. I'm already lobster facey. I'm already feeling it. You get those little tingles in your fingers when you drink enough. We're there. We're absolutely having a good time. So 6 more likes, 1 more shot. We got 174 people here in the chat, and God knows what's going to happen after that point. But let's talk about the sponsors real quick, Luke, while I've still got the capability of doing so. First up, Pub Sports Radio. Thank you each and every week for hosting the show. Guys, we give out a free $100 every single week for the Pick'em contest. As you can see right here, your boys are brown belts, 8,600 points, and 2 straight up wins in these free Pick'em contests. If you want to win $100, it's free to enter. All you got to do is beat me. All you got to do is beat the Pub Sports Radio personalities, win first place in the Pick'em contest, pick your fighter, your round, your method, and if you score enough points, $100, it's all you. Come sign up. It's free. Have fun. Hit the site. Plus, you can get all of our merch and stuff like that on the site and get some it's like rub. They've got like Pub Sports Radio specific rub for your meats and stuff like that. Good stuff. Check it out. Check out the site. Next up, Spectation Sports. We had a good, awesome event last week. Next up, we've got North Iowa Fights and the Aries. We just talked about Aries FC, man. They were, we just talked about their champion a minute ago. So we've got awesome regional scene MMA coming up. 20% off your monthly subscription if you want to watch these regional MMA fights. That's how we found about Trevor Peak. However, Peak let me down. He cost me 2.2 units, so fuck that. But go sign up at Spectation Sports if you want to watch regional MMA. Next up, the Sharp app. You want models, you want statistics, you want numbers. They have a whale that they tail who, by the way, free little tidbit for you guys. The whale is on the Angels tonight. So this guy's got literally $25,000 riding on the Angels tonight in MLB. I have tailed that. If you guys want, you can tail that too at your own risk. But that's the kind of shit you get with the Sharp app. Make sure you check them out. Join the Discord. The Discord is free, I believe. But then, of course, there's paid, stuff. They've got articles. They've got models. They've got everything. Make sure you check them out. Join them. And finally, bet openly. Okay, this is where it gets hard. I was all planned out and ready to go for this here. But so what we got with Bet Openly, they're the new sponsor here for the podcast. What we're going to do every single week is make sure you guys can grab my cash. We're going to go heads up. It's peer-to-peer betting is what Bet Openly is, Luke. And what that means for you guys who are wondering, actually, I'm going to pull this move here. Boom. You can see my pretty little face down there in the bottom left-hand corner while I explain this to you. Peer-to-peer betting. 1% juice is what Bet Openly takes, which means the gamblers, us, we all get better lines because they're cutting out the middleman. They're cutting out the house. The bookies have -110 lines. they only take 1%. So it's, minus 101 instead of minus 110. So it's saving money for you on the line to gamble with Bet Openly. I'm going to go ahead and find my code with Bet Openly. I want you guys to jump in there. And you know what? It would just mean the world to me. Even if you guys don't end up signing up with Bet Openly, which why wouldn't you? You should. But if you don't, at least use my code. Every single Monday night, I want their alarm bells to go off that, they're getting all the traffic in the world. So click my code in the chat, if nothing else. But I'm going to walk you through this. So check this out. You go over here to the left, create a bet, create a peer-to-peer bet, 1%. This is how this works. You can do parlays. It's only 2 legs. You can do single bets, which normally is what we do. Single bet, and then check this out. We got MLB, we got soccer, we got MMA. So like I mentioned, I'm on the Angels. I'm not going to give you guys that one because we're going to do MMA. I always am going to give you guys a chance to go head-to-head with me and take my money. So if you disagree with me, you're going to be on the other side. You can literally come take my cash. So what are we going to do? And check this out. Melissa Gatto, I think, is a minus 200, minus 210 favorite, but because of the 1% juice, you can still get minus 195 right here, right now on Melissa Gatto here on this site. But I want to go ahead and do like a more, I guess, even moneyed type of bet. So you know what? Let's do Karol because she's a little bit closer. So look at this, minus 152. She's minus 160, minus 165 everywhere else, but you can get her at minus 152 here on Bet Openly. So we'll do that. So what I'm going to do, see, and check this out. You can actually edit the odds if you want to, Luke. I don't know if anybody knows this, but you maybe you shouldn't, but you can. So you can like offer other people better odds if you really got a spot that you love and you want to like sucker people into taking the other side. You absolutely can control that. I could do like minus one. See, look at this. I can do like minus 135 here if I wanted to and just change it. But we're going to do minus 152. I'm going to put that back and I'm going to put $152 of my own money up right here. I'm laying minus 152 to win 100. You agree here that you've got the 1% fees for the winner, and the winner pays, by the way, not the loser. You hit submit bet. Boom. That's it. Now it's on the Bet Openly site. And if you guys want to take the other side, if you want to fade Karol Rosa, if you want to bet on Yana, you can take the other side of it. So now you can go over here to open bets. And honestly, this works for all bets, obviously, but you can scroll through here, like right here. This is giving you the option to bet the LA Angels. That means somebody out there bet on the other side of this, and you can take as much of this bet as you want. See how much is available? Like I mentioned, Jillian Robertson last week, 3 people took my action, I think, on Jillian Robertson, and 3 different people got my dollars on their Tabitha Rigi side of things. So, like, I'm going to take this bet here on the Angels. Like I told you guys, I'm going to tail the whale from the Sharp app. I'm combining sponsors here, folks. But I'm going to take whatever this guy has left. I'm going to go ahead and bet 87 to win 74 here. I'm going to place that bet on the LA Angels here at minus 117 tonight. That's how it works. It's literally like social media for gambling. So if you want the other side of the action, that's how you get in on here with me. And yes, Mike. I am 100. I'm sorry, not Mike. See, yeah, I'm hammered. That's right. I am hammered. But that's how the action works, right, Luke? It's social media for gambling, essentially. If we both like opposite sides on a play, we can bet against each other, cut out the middleman on the house. Everybody gets better odds. It's better for all of us. It's a great tool for bettors, folks. Sign up, click the link, get involved. And I'm sorry that description took a little longer than it should, but it's because you guys have already gotten me to the point where I've taken 6 shots tonight. So you really only have yourselves to blame. Let me go ahead and check the number here, Luke. And we have 101, which means I owe you assholes another shot. Here we go. You're doing this to yourselves. You guys realize that, right? My wife is going to kill me when I get off the show.
I'm going to witness a death live on camera. This is not good. I'm complicit.
This is what, 7? I agreed to 5. This is 7. Oh, and we got 176 live viewers. Thank you all for hanging out. This is the Die Hard MMA podcast. Believe it or not, this is not what every week's show looks like. I'm hanging out with my guy Luke, sparring with reality betting. Make sure you check him out. One of the sharpest bettors in the game. One of the OG co-hosts here on the show, spending his Monday night with us and putting up with my bullshit. So everybody make sure you support Luke. Next fight up, everybody. Let's get into this shit. The next fight up, my guy, Luke, Kevin Lee makes his glorious return to the UFC. I don't know if you guys know this. Most of you may not remember, I was the biggest Kevin Lee truther out there. Like, I loved this guy. If there was a 165-pound division, Kevin Lee is probably your champion of it. Like, he's one of these poor suckers that's trapped between two weight classes. 155 is really hard for him to make, but he's a little undersized at 170. He's really good everywhere. He's got good, solid wrestling. He mixes that well with his BJJ. You are going to see that highlight where he just absolutely murdered Gregor Gillespie all week this week. You're going to see it all week this week because he head kicked the man to the shadow realm and he doesn't really compete anymore after that. So I'm excited that we got Kevin Lee back, Luke. I really am. But the thing that worries me just a little bit here is this fight is not at 155. It's at 170. He's coming in here filling in on, I believe, semi-short notice. Shit. I just dropped the cap. Okay. He's coming in here on semi-short notice, and he's fighting up at 170, which I think he really has to be at 155. I think he belongs at 155, where he can use that weight advantage, where he can use that strength advantage, where he can bully his opponents. And if he doesn't have that, his game is not nearly as effective. Lee is a plus 165 underdog against Rinat Fakhretdinov, who's your minus 200 favorite. And as much as I love Kevin Lee, and as much as I think he's got a championship caliber game, you know what I mean? Like, his striking does what he needs to do. He's got the smooth BJJ. He's got opportunistic submissions. He can wrestle the hell out of people. His striking is solid. He's got power on the feet. Like, he's got everything you need. I like everything Kevin Lee has got. But he's dealing with a much, much larger human being. You know, you go back and you watch, like, and Rafael Dos Anjos is a legend in the UFC, in the MMA game in general, right? Like, we can't take anything away from RDA. RDA mauled Kevin Lee for 25 straight minutes in that fight. And Rinat is bigger than RDA and longer than RDA. He's a natural 170 pounder. He's not a 155er who is, striking above his weight class. He's actually a guy who belongs in that division. Relentless wrestling, big power in his hands, active ground and pound. He does the thing where he does like the Dagestani ride. He gets the wrist control and like really pins you up against that little corner where the floor meets the cage. And he just fucks you up from there. Like, this guy mauls people. Luke, I want Kevin Lee to win. I came in here this week expecting to bet Kevin Lee. I was like, my guy is back. He fought Diego Sanchez in Eagle FC, which was, by the way, a giant letdown. And I expected to be on him coming in here in this UFC fight, even just for shits and giggles. I was ready to burn money to go ahead and back my guy, Kevin Lee. And I can't. He's got a 75% takedown defense, and that's great. Somehow he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. That doesn't make sense. But he's going to be so much smaller than Rinat Fakhretdinov. If you get taken down on repeat by a guy like RDA, and then you're getting Rinat Fakhretdinov coming in next to deal with, I think he's too small. Luke, I think his bully advantage, that strength, that power, this guy shoots 6 takedowns per 15 minutes and hits at a 63% accuracy. I know he hasn't fought many people in the UFC so far, but Rinat Fakhretdinov is a grappling monster. I kind of think it's Rinat by decision, maybe like a late TKO. I'm not sure what Kevin Lee is going to do to stop this guy. Unless he lands the perfect shot, unless he lands that pinpoint head kick the way he did against Gillespie, I don't know how he's going to get Rinat off him, Luke. I think this is a lay the chalk spot.
Yeah, this is one I don't really know what to do with, to be honest with you. I was someone that was kind of right there with you that was like a Kevin Lee truther. Like, it was like probably back in like 2015 or something. I was like, I kind of made the bold prediction that like Kevin Lee is going to be a future world champion. And I felt pretty confident in that, to be honest. And honestly, I think Kevin Lee really has like all of the skills by and large. Like, he's a pretty well-rounded fighter. He's a great athlete. The problems with Kevin Lee are that his striking defense at times can be pretty suspect. He's cardio dumped in multiple fights. He kind of is a mental midget, honestly, at some points. Like, he's a guy who's been open about saying that he kind of struggles with the, mental part of the game, wins and losses. When things start to go bad, they tend to kind of snowball for Kevin Lee historically throughout his career, but I think all the foundational skills are there. Like, I think he's a pretty good offensive striker. He's a really solid wrestler. He's one of the only guys to really give Michael Chiesa fits from a grappling perspective. And he actually went out there and submitted, him back in the day. He was winning the Oliveira fight. He was winning the D-Rod fight. He was winning the Tony Ferguson fight, so despite like all the losses and stuff, I do think his strength of competition needs to be heavily contextualized too. And it's not as if he is not like having any sort of success, in these fights either. Even when he like fought Barbosa, remember he got, put on the stanky legs or whatever with that nasty head kick, but then he proceeded to go out there and
the best stanky leg in UFC history. The man looked like a newborn giraffe dancing around trying to keep his balance. That clip is the funniest shit. I love when they play that clip, Luke. That one gets me every single time.
And one thing I will say about the Diego Sanchez fight, he did hurt his knee early in that fight. So I think that's part of the reason why he looked like shit, because he couldn't really plant on his leg. He didn't officially tear his ACL, but he messed something up in his knee within that fight. So I think that's a decent part of the reason why he looked bad. But I understand overall that was not exactly the most inspiring performance against the ghost of Diego Sanchez. But I don't know. Like, I think Fakhretdinov, once again, he looks like a complete savage. The guy's going to go out there, shoot a ton of takedowns. He's really strong from top position. But I think Kevin Lee's actually a better technical striker than him. It's just, what does that like attritional type of wrestling do? Because to your point, I mean, Kevin Lee does stuff takedowns at 75%. So like people historically don't just sit there and, tip Kevin Lee over from TDAs. So I don't necessarily know if it's going to be as easy for Fakhretdinov to go out there and wrestle a guy like Kevin Lee. Like, he's been able to out wrestle a lot of these other guys. Like, even the Brian Battle fight for Fakhretdinov, like, Battle came in on like a week's notice. And
that was short notice.
That was his second cut to 170, where the guy almost like died. Brian Battle was actually hospitalized prior to that fight, and he somehow convinced the commission to let him.
I don't know how that happened.
So that's just a little bit of context there too. But no, like I said, the guy's a good wrestler and he hits really hard and he's going to bring a good pace. So honestly, what I'm more concerned about for Lee is, one, where the guy's just at right now at this point in his career, where he's at mentally. To your point, I don't really like him as much at 170 per se, because he is carrying more muscle. But yeah, just what the cardio of Kevin Lee potentially looks like in this fight if he's just, getting relentlessly spammed with stuff. But I do think he's the best fighter, like, overall, that Fakhretdinov has fought to date. So for me personally, this fight's a massive pass.
I think that's fair. Luke. I'm probably going to pass. I'm dying on that. I ate that Dorito trying to stay alive, make sure I've got something to absorb the alcohol, and now it's trapped in my throat. So I'm just going to die on camera, but not the way you expected tonight, folks. I completely agree with you. I think that this is a situation where we find out skills versus size, right? Like, there's weight classes for a reason. When you get two guys of equal skill, the bigger guy is going to win more often than not. That's just how it works. But if you've got a guy that's way more skilled, even if he's smaller, he can find a way to win the fight, a la RDA versus Kevin Lee. Like, that's just what happens. If you've got a guy that's that much better, he can find a way to win the fight. Is Kevin Lee that much better than Rinat Fakhretdinov? I don't know. Especially this version of him. Two things. Two things I want to mention. One is, I'm glad you mentioned the dead leg, because you go back and you watch that fight against Diego Sanchez, and it's like the first kick Diego throws, it completely compromises Lee, and his leg never comes back. I mean, he's like peg-legged the entire fight, dragging that thing across the mat. He has no movement. He has no footwork. He can't do shit in that fight because Diego absolutely chopped that leg off. So that fight looks pretty bad when you watch it visually, but understanding what happened, it's like, well, maybe Kevin Lee finishes him if he's got two working legs. You know what I mean? Like, he dominated that fight bell to bell. on one leg. So you got to think maybe he's better than that with two legs. The second thing that I want to mention, I totally forgot. Luke, I am so sorry. I completely forgot the second point that I was about to make. It had something to do with the size situation. I think Kevin Lee might be skillful enough to take advantage of Rinat Fakhretdinov. You know, Rinat, like you mentioned, Brian Battle came in on short notice. He was in the hospital before that fight. So maybe a fresh-faced Kevin Lee. Oh, it's his age. Luke, it's his age. It came back to me. Sorry. You know how you like wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and the thing you've forgotten all day, but it's been bugging you, finally hits you and it like jars you out of your sleep? That's kind of just what happened to me. 30 years old. Kevin Lee is 30 years old. Technically speaking, folks, medically speaking, he's in his prime. Like, we've seen the ups and downs of Kevin Lee in the UFC. But physically speaking, he is just entering those prime years of 30, 31, 32. So technically, we might actually have the best of Kevin Lee yet to come. So we might actually see better things from Kevin Lee moving forward. I want to back my guy. I want to cheer my face off for him. I don't know that he would take this fight if he didn't know that he could win it. And that's one of those things where, like, Luke, honestly, it's not like a numbers handicap, but it's like an emotional and mental, he's got this type of thing. I feel like Kevin Lee wouldn't take this fight if he didn't know he could win it. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know. Part of me wants to find my way over to Kevin Lee. My handicap of the fight tells me that Rinat Fakhretdinov probably wins the fight. Maybe the line's a little bit wide. I can't touch it. There's too many questions. There's way too many question marks. So I am going to tentatively pick Rinat Fakhretdinov to go ahead and win this fight. But I'm going to be rooting my ass off for Kevin Lee on Saturday. I'll tell you that. It's just the way it goes. And by the way, guys, I know I've got absolutely the best chat in the world. You guys are awesome because I am absolutely feeling these shots. And you guys are not like screaming at me for more. We've got people in the chat like telling me to drink more water and telling me to eat more Doritos. Luke, these people actually care about me, and that's actually a very relieving feeling. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for letting me know. And Shark, by the way, part of this is your fault because you are one of the people that bet the shots with me, so I blame you. But saying that Brian Battle is horrible, I gotta disagree just a little bit. Like, the guy's, he's not bad. He's not bad. He spent that whole fight on his back, which I feel like was a little bit rough, but on the feet, he's pretty solid. He's big for the weight class. I don't know. That weight cut might be getting to him a little bit. We'll see. Brian Battle, we're going to put a pin in Brian Battle, but I think we might like him a little bit better than you do. All right. Next fight up. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Before we get to the next fight, we do have just a couple of left here to go, guys. But if you do just want to punish me, if you want to absolutely destroy me, we've got 180 live viewers. We peaked up at over 200 live viewers here for a second. You guys have no idea. The likes and the algorithm on YouTube, they matter. So we had 200 live viewers here on the show for a minute. We got 180 now. We've got 110 likes. I got to find a balance between my wife hating me for the rest of the night and pleasing you guys. Let's go 175. If you guys get me to 175 likes on the stream, you get another shot. I'm 6 in. Am I 7 in? Luke, have you been counting? Am I 7 in or am I 6 in?
I thought we were at 7.
I think you're muted. I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that?
7. I thought was the updated count.
I know I'm not that drunk. Do you guys hear Luke? Because he's not muted and I can't hear him. Is that an audio issue? That's not good. Nigel Lee saying, no, don't do it.
Yeah, I'm not.
Sorry that.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so the chat is telling me 7. The chat is telling me 7. But legitimately, okay, so other people say that they can't. Okay, you guys can hear Luke. Why can't I hear Luke? That's super weird. I don't have you muted or anything like that. I'm not so drunk that I would accidentally mute you. I actually don't know why I can't hear you. Luke, speak for me real quick. Let's see if we can figure this out.
Hello.
Just give me a testing or something.
Testing.
Shit. I can't hear Luke. If StreamYard's fucking up on me right now while I'm drunk, that's not good because I don't have the capacity to troubleshoot. And Jared, no, I didn't hit a button. That's the thing. Like I manually see. Here's the thing. I can manually mute and unmute Luke. I'm doing it right now. I don't know if you guys can see it next to his name. It shows if I'm muting and unmuting him. So he is unmuted. I did not mute Luke. That's not a thing. That didn't happen. I don't know why I can't hear. You know what? Maybe it's my headphones. I'm going to switch ears. Let me see if maybe like my headphones died and I can't hear you out of the left ear. Try again, Luke. Let me see if I can hear you out of my right ear.
Test.
This is great TV, by the way. People watching the show are going to love this. Luke, hit me with a testing, man. Let me see if I can hear you.
Test.
Fuck. No. This is not good. Okay, so Luke, I can't hear you. I don't know what happened. The people apparently still can hear you. You're going to have to like give me a thumbs up or something after you talk because this is some new shit that I've never dealt with. The next fight up, folks, we're going to work our way through this, is Nursulton Ruziboev taking on Brunno Silva. And if you guys remember, Brunno Ferreira Silva, Silva. My God, what is wrong with me? Brunno Ferreira is the Hulk. He is the Hulk. I made an amazing TikTok where I talked about not parlaying Gregory Hopocop Rodriguez because Brunno Silva absolutely could like meme KO this guy. And he did. He jabbed Brunno. God, I'm falling apart. He jabbed Gregory Robocop in the face. And that was it. That's all it took to knock the guy out. This guy's got stupid power. BJJ black belt, judo black belt, heavy hands. He's short for the division. He's tanky for the division. And before you guys freak out, Luke is trying to like pop out and pop back in and see if maybe that fixes his audio. But Brunno is a guy that I think is extremely reliant on his power. He's a big finisher. He looks for those opportunities every time he gets them. His ground and pound is nasty. You do not want to be underneath this Brunno. But I feel like that last fight was a fluke. I mean, you listened to my last breakdown of that fight, and I even said, I was like, don't parlay Gregory because he could get memed here. Like, if he just takes the bad shot, we know he's just a little bit chinny, he could go down. And he did. But now we've got Brunno taking on UFC newcomer here. And this guy is weird, Luke. Like, I don't know if you have done too much tape study on this guy, but he is really, really weird. He hits so many Kimuras. Like, he's got no takedown defense whatsoever. And then he rolls for submissions as soon as people like hit the takedowns on him and stuff like that. It's really awkward. I'm not sure if he's good or if he's fighting bums. Like, he could be the best Kimura artist of our lifetime. He could be the highest Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt of all time. Or he's just fighting absolute nobodies. I really don't know what to make of him. He's tall, he's lanky, he's long. He actually does a really good job with his range, but his takedown defense is like 0. At 34-8-2, this guy could have the most padded record I've ever seen. But he's got fast hips. He's got really good submissions from his back. He absolutely loves that Kimura from guard, like I mentioned. And he's got vicious ground and pound. Like, if he gets on top of people, he will elbow you to hell. And this is a short notice fill-in, folks. So I've seen a lot of people jumping on the Brunno side of things. But I don't trust this Brunno. 10-0, the Hulk, big, crazy, stupid power. I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. And let me tell you guys, I can't throw him very far. He's a round one finisher. If he doesn't nuke you, we've never seen what happens. I think he's been to the second round twice in his entire career. So this guy, Ruziboev, at 34-8-2, yeah, a lot of his fights end in the first round as well, but he's got so much more experience, and he's only been knocked out once. Like, I kind of feel like people are jumping on the wrong side here, Luke. I feel like recency bias is hitting pretty hard on the Brunno side of things. I would be looking dog or pass here. I haven't made a bet yet on this one, and I don't know that I will. This might be a fireball and popcorn fight. It might be a spot where I look and I watch just to get some additional information, but this guy's so much bigger. He's so much longer, and he finally makes it to the UFC. The sub upside is there. He could jab him to death. Like, I don't know. I'm not sold on this version of Brunno. So I would be looking at Ruziboev or pass, in my opinion, and we'll see where this line goes. Luke, hit me with what you think, and let's see if the chat can hear you.
You got me now? You got me now? Yes, no? No?
Nothing here. What the fuck? This is really frustrating. Luke, go ahead, do your breakdown. Hit me with a thumbs up or something like that after you're done. Chat, let me know if you can't hear Luke, because you guys said previously that you could hear him. I don't know why I can't, for some ungodly reason. But we'll go with that. Or you know what, Luke? Check this out. I'm gonna pull up a YouTube stream of our own show, and I'm gonna listen to you in a different tab so that I can find a way to listen to you. So go ahead, man. Go for it.
All right. So I'm pretty much on the other side of this one. Obviously it's a relatively more recent booking. I did a ton of tape on this Nursulton guy. He's got a V at the end of his name, a ton of pro experience, but I don't think this guy's good at all. Like I said, if you're just looking at it on paper, it looks impressive, but he's incredibly low volume on the feet. He's faced very little volume back his way. He has absolutely no takedown defense. Anytime anybody wants to shoot on him, he goes down like a sack of potatoes every single time. Kind of to his record, he's got like 20 subs of 34 pro wins, but a ton of those are from within the guard. They're Kimuras, arm bars, that type of stuff, where this Ferreira guy, despite being kind of conventionally known as this big, brooding, go forward power puncher type of guy, which he is, he's actually a black belt in both judo and jiu-jitsu. That's actually his base within martial arts. In quite a few of the fights I was able to view for him, I mean, despite a lot of people reference the size, because I think it's like a 6-inch height discrepancy here, where this Nursulton guy's going to be much, much taller than him. But this Ferreira guy's fought guys that have been 6'4", 6'5" before. And pretty much his strategy to both of those fights was to go forward and pick those guys up and dump them on their head and beat the living, what, out of them on the ground. And I think this Ferreira guy is going to be able to land takedowns whenever he wants within this fight. All he has to do is really avoid guard sub arm locks, and I think he's completely fine to either just win minutes in top, because this Nursulton guy doesn't. He's swept a couple guys here and there, but there's been so many fights where he will sit there on his back for the entirety of rounds and is losing rounds. And this Ferreira guy, like I said, is the much better wrestler in the fight and is pretty dangerous on top with both ground and pound and subs. And then he's going to come forward and he's going to throw bombs on the feet. So really all Ferreira needs to do is avoid the right hand from Nursulton and avoid guard sub arm locks. And he's going to beat this guy at a pretty sizable clip, in my opinion. Coupled with that, the Nursulton guy's coming in on 2 weeks notice, where Ferreira has had a full camp for this fight. So I completely understand why it's been one-way traffic towards Ferreira. In my opinion, the Nursulton guy is a gigantic fraud, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, so here's the thing, guys. It's totally not my headphones. I don't know why. I don't know what the deal is. I've got a stream up of our video. So I'm like literally in the chat here. Check this out. I'm going to go ahead and say like, oh, never mind. I can't. I'm not logged in. I was going to say hi in the chat so you guys could see me. I'm listening to my own podcast right now. I can hear Luke just fine in the audio of our podcast, but I can't hear him in StreamYard, which makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. And now I'm really pissed off that I'm slightly intoxicated because I don't even know how to troubleshoot this shit right now. This is the wildest thing I've ever experienced. So I do apologize. After Luke gets done with his breakdowns, there's going to be a short delay before I respond because I'm listening to his breakdown and there will be just a second of dead air while I listen to that before it gets here to my turn. So sorry, guys. We're just going to pin our ears back and we're going to work our way through it. I totally get it, Luke. I absolutely get it. I'm not going to bet on this fight. I don't trust this Brunno, everything you said makes absolute sense here to me. It's dog or pass for me. But I get it, man. I get it. It's okay. We're going to go ahead and move on. So guys, honestly, like this whole thing was supposed to be super fun for you guys, and Drunk Clint is a great time. So I hope you're enjoying it. But at the same time, I also want to preserve at least a little bit of quality for my show. And it's turned into such a shit show. We're going to try and get these last couple of fights done. So let's go ahead and move this bad boy along. The next one up, Benoit Saint-Denis taking on Ismael Bonfim. And you guys, I'm just gonna just give it to me. The Ismael Bonfim versus Terrence McKinney spot. I gotta pat myself on the back for that one. So many people out there, the whole world and their mother, Terrence McKinney. We got an opening line at even money, underdog odds on Ismael Bonfim because Terrence McKinney is not there yet. The guy's got round one crazy potential, but he doesn't have a full, complete MMA game. And he finally fought a full, complete MMA fighter. But what's happening this week, Luke? People are swaying way too far. This is recency bias, baby. You've got the God of War, Benoit Saint-Denis, French Special Forces, 10-1, one of the strongest people in this division. Crazy grappling upside, big strong body lock, a left hook from hell. This man is plus 250 against the, and yes, I got the hiccups. Go ahead, laugh at me. This is the minus 300 Ismael Bonfim in this spot. Luke, he was minus 110 against Terrence McKinney, and he's minus 300 against Ismael Bonfim. I can't do it. I absolutely can't do it. This feels like recency bias to the max. I love the Bonfim bros. I think they're incredibly talented. They've got good wrestling defense. They've got good balance. They've got good flexibility. They've got pop in their hands. Their counter ability is fantastic. They're processed on the feet. Everything is good. Everything is solid. But he's a decent bit smaller in this spot, Luke. I don't know if you've looked at like the stats of this fight, but you go back and you watch Ismael Bonfim's career and some of the decision wins he had. The one Augusto back in the LFA is the one that really comes to mind here for me. This guy jumps Gilly like Cody Brundage does. Like he literally like sells out for that guillotine and puts himself in a bad position the same way that Cody Brundage does, except he was in the driver's seat of that fight. Now he's taking on Ismael Bonfim, who is 3 inches taller, 4 inches taller, and has a 2-inch reach advantage. Like, this is the biggest, most physical human being that Ismael Bonfim has ever faced in his career. And you go back to Benoit Saint-Denis' fight where, God, that judge, that referee, the official should be thrown in prison against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. This man showed his toughness in that fight. The beating he took that night and still kept coming forward and stayed in that fight. You cannot break Benoit Saint-Denis. He's never been finished. He's got a 100% finish rate. He's got 8 wins by sub. And what's been the trouble for Ismael Bonfim? Oh, that's right, Luke. His 3 losses, all 3 of them are by submission. Folks, like this one, you can't script this any better. This is a Clint spot like none other. Everyone and their mother is on Ismael Bonfim because he beat T-Rex, because he beat Terrence McKinney. He's good everywhere. I love this guy. I think he's going to be a money train. You're going to be able to back this guy. He's what the Koski brothers were supposed to be. But now he's taking on a man who might just be his kryptonite. Benoit Saint-Denis, I think, is going to be bigger. He's going to be stronger. I think he's going to bully this man up against the cage. He's got that big left hand that's going to get him the respect on the feet. And then, Luke, he does nothing but shoot for those grappling exchanges where we have seen Bonfim actually struggle. I'm going to take the dog shot. I haven't pulled the trigger yet because everybody is just piling in on Ismael Bonfim. But going from minus 110 against T-Rex to minus 300 against Benoit Saint-Denis makes 0 sense to me, Luke. Talk some sense into me here. Plus 250 right now on Benoit Saint-Denis. I'm still waiting because I think this line might actually go higher. But this is a dog I'm very interested in, Luke. Hit me, buddy. What do you think in this spot?
Yeah, I think the line might be a bit high, but this fight's a pass for me personally. Just to address the submission thing for a couple seconds, it does need to be noted that all of these fights were like over a decade ago when he was a child, essentially. And two of the submission losses, one of them came against Renato Moicano, who's now an absolute stud and super, super high level black belt. And Adriano Moraes, his very first submission losses, the dude that's out fighting Demetrius Johnson over in one right now. So the two of those guys that have subbed him have those have not been losses that have aged poorly by any stretch of the imagination, and are two pretty high level guys. But I don't think it's a great matchup for Saint Denis in the sense that I think Bonfim's takedown defense is pretty good in comparison to a lot of the past opponents that Saint Denis fought. I concede the fact that he's a pretty good grappler when he's able to get on top, but it's like if he's not able to get on top consistently here, I'm just not really a fan of Saint Denis striking. I don't think it's very technical. Like, yeah, he's got some power and stuff, but I think from a pure technical boxing perspective, Bonfim is like levels above Saint Denis from a pure boxing perspective. So I guess my take is if Saint Denis not able to get the fight to the ground and he's forced to stand for extended amounts of time in this fight, I don't think he wins a striking affair at too high of a clip. Again, it's not impossible. Like I said, he's going to be aggressive. He's going to throw stuff, and he's got some power. But outboxing a guy like Bonfim, I think, is going to be pretty difficult to do. To your point, though, and what I do concede, I have also seen the guy jump the gilly a handful of times too, which I think would be a mistake within this fight to sit there and proactively put himself on bottom. But I do think his overall takedown defense, when he's trying to defend takedowns, it's pretty good. So I think it's going to be much more difficult for Saint Denis to out wrestle a guy like Bonfim and then outstrike him. So I'm a little bit the other way, and I think making Bonfim a decent sized favorite makes sense. With all that being said, I'm not running to the window to lay 3-1 here either. So the fight's a pass for me.
Okay. I couldn't agree with you more, Luke. Absolutely could not agree with you more. It makes sense for me to have him be a slight favorite. Minus 300 is just straight up too big. Like, that's too much for me. I don't understand why he's a minus 300 favorite. That is far too far for me. I'm not expecting Benoit Saint-Denis to be competitive in the grappling or in the striking realm. I'm expecting to be forcing the grappling, and that's kind of what he does. Like, that's what we've seen from him so far in the UFC. He punches his way in, he hurts people on the feet, and then he sells out for that takedown. And if he's going to do that against the guy who I have seen struggle in the grappling department, who I have seen jump that ill-advised guillotine, I mean, that's what I'm talking about. If Benoit Saint-Denis gets on top of this guy, I think it could be a bit of a problem. So I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I'm tempted, Luke. I'm tempted. I might be riding with my guy, Benoit Saint-Denis. This is one of those spots casuals have a hard time understanding. I know you get it, but like, I'll pick Bonfim to win the fight. But if I'm going to bet, I'm going to be betting on Benoit Saint-Denis. You know what I mean?
I kind of like the overs and GTDs here too. If you can hear me.
This delay is killing me. I don't mind the over. Yeah, I don't mind the over at all. I think that's not a bad look, Luke. I really don't think that's a bad option, because I don't know that Benoit obviously can take the beating from Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Obviously, he can survive that kind of onslaught on the feet from somebody who's smaller than that. I don't think he'll have a trouble staying in the fight. And if we trust Bonfim to stay safe, at least on the ground, if he can defend those grappling positions this, later on in his career where he's patched up those holes, as long as Benoit doesn't sub him, I actually think the overs make a ton of sense in this spot. If they give us like a 1.5 or like a plus at the 2.5 over, I think over is a great look in this spot. All right. And with that, we're going to move on to the next fight. Thank you very much for hanging out, everybody. We have got 186 live viewers and we've got 139 likes. So I've promised you guys a shot if we get to 175. Maybe I set that bar a little bit too high. We'll drop it to 170. We'll drop it to 170. I'll negotiate here because of the technical difficulties. I do apologize, but Luke's being a trooper and hanging in here with me. So let's go ahead and move this bad boy on. Next up, we've got Ariane Lipski taking on Melissa Gatto. And Luke, it's Gatto season. Straight up, it's Gatto season. I'm going to keep my breakdown short and sweet. I love this girl. I bet on her against Tracy Cortez, and Cortez was enough of a wrestler to put her on her back, and she, played jiu-jitsu, couldn't handle the strength. We see that all the time, right? Like wrestling beats BJJ these days when the wrestler has submission defense. But if you're not having somebody that has that wrestling offense, Gatto's going to destroy you, son. She's got 2 losses. They're both by decision. The most recent one was by Tracy Cortez, obviously, but she is a submission machine. She's got great ground and pound. She's mean on the feet. She's got the teep kick up the middle. I love everything about Melissa Gatto. She's big. She's strong. She's veiny. I'm sure she's on all the good vitamins. I love this chick, Luke. I absolutely love Melissa Gatto, and I love her here in this spot. She's like a minus 200 favorite here in this spot, minus 230. The line is steaming away, folks. What I've done, Luke, I've parlayed Melissa Gatto with Jalen Turner at UFC 290. 4-unit banger. 4 units on Gatto and Turner at plus 121. I like both those fighters at short favorite odds. And I think Gatto inside the distance is going to be something I potentially look at here this week when the number comes out for me. Ariane Lipski is 15-8. And she's coming off a career best performance from JJ Aldrich. But let's not forget that she's got 4 knockout losses. 4 of them. Priscilla Cachoeira knocked her out. Montana De La Rosa knocked her out. Antonina Shevchenko knocked her out. Luke, if you're getting taken down and beaten to a pulp by the lesser Shevchenko sister, that's the biggest red flag that I could think of here in this weight class. Gatto is so physically strong, and the way she hunts those takedowns and the way she attacks with elbows on the ground, like, I'm so sorry. This is a Gatto spot, and I'm surprised she's not minus 300. I think she rolls here. I think she finishes Lipski, and I love me some Queen of Violence, but I can't do it. I think Gatto absolutely destroys this week. What do you think of this fight?
Man, I think this is a tricky fight, to be honest with you. So definitely nowhere near the amount of passion for me on the Gatto side. I still don't even really fully know what to make of Melissa Gatto, to be honest. Like, her beating up Leonardo in her debut doesn't really tell me much. She was getting dominated for half the fight against Eubanks, gets swept, Eubanks death gasses, she kicks her in the body, has her moments against Cortez, wins the second round, but the number one problem I have with Gatto, I don't think she's a very strong offensive wrestler. My second issue with her is she is incredibly submission over position. She had Tracy Cortez's back and decides to go for like a belly down armbar. I just hate that shit from fighters personally, just giving up a position like that to force a lower percentage sub. She's willing to play from her back at the same time too. So I do think she's a good grappler, like generally in relation to the level. I think her striking has gotten a lot better. But in talking about a minus 230 price tag, when said, I don't think she's looked like particularly great in all of these fights by any means. She still only has 11 pro fights at the end of the day. Like I said, I've seen a lot of disconcerting things with her as well. On the flip side of the coin, though, the problem with Ariane Lipski and just handicapping Ariane Lipski fights is you're dealing with just a complete Jekyll and Hyde fighter. When Ariane Lipski loses, she looks absolutely terrible. But when she wins, she looks really, really good. Like, to Clint's point, the girl went out there and just put on the performance of a lifetime and lit up a girl like JJ Aldrich, who, you know, isn't like a top 10 girl by any means, but is a pretty good boxer, and beat the ever living shit out of her and stuffed all 12 takedowns from JJ Aldrich in that fight. So it's just kind of like, what version of Ariane Lipski are you getting? Are you getting the good version of Ariane Lipski, where she's going to go out there and whip the shit out of a girl like JJ Aldrich? Or are you getting the version of Ariane Lipski where she's going to get pounded out on the ground by the bad Shevchenko sister? So to me, the fight's very variable in that sense, because if Lipski's takedown defense has truly improved, one thing I feel very, very confident in saying is that Melissa Gatto is not a -200-300 favorite on the feet against a girl like Ariane Lipski. Like, I think that's absolutely insane. I think for her to cover her line, she's getting on top of Lipski. Lipski's folding, and she's finishing ultimately, which once again is very, very possible. But there are other outcomes to this fight, and I'm personally not as high on Melissa Gatto as most people, but I obviously have my massive issues with Lipski. So I don't know. If the price keeps going and Lipski gets like over +200, I might just take a small shot into that as like a blood pressure medication bet on a line that potentially could be wide depending on which girl shows up. So that's all I got. But best of luck on Gatto for now, but no luck if I do end up taking a shot at Lipski.
The blood pressure medication bet line is phenomenal, Luke. That's good shit right there. I love it. So I get what you're saying. I think if the line gets wide enough, we bet numbers, not necessarily fighters. So yeah, if this line gets wide enough, Lipski is showing improvements. She's young. She's getting better. But frankly, I think she's a good hammer and she's a bad nail. Like, if she is on the receiving end of the beating, she just doesn't seem to respond well to me here. And I think the way we've seen Gatto like move her way forward, body lock people, and like rip them to the ground, that's the kind of takedown that's going to work on Lipski. That's the kind of takedown that, you know, if you're just overpowered by someone physically, she collapses under that. We've seen it time and time again. And Gatto will continue to do that over 15 minutes. You mentioned the Sijara Eubanks fight. That finish came in the third round. She was a good nail. She took that beating. She took the defensive. She survived that. And then she turned it on her when she got her chance in the driver's seat. She finished that fight. I could see that happening here in this spot where Lipski is maybe competitive in the first round. But as this fight gets longer, as it drags deeper, I think Gatto's just going to keep coming. You know what I mean? And a lot of this bet is predicated on Gatto being able to get the takedown. Lipski does have a 73% takedown defense, and that does concern me just a little bit. But as long as Gatto is able to continue doing what we've seen her do so far in the past, which all taking down somebody like Tracy frickin' Cortez and taking her back on the takedown attempt, transitioning straight to back control. This is an undefeated 5-0 fighter with 71% takedown defense here in the UFC, and Tracy Cortez. If she can do that to her, I think she can also do it to Ariane Lipski. So I'm willing to lay the chalk here and see what happens. All right. Not seeing your mouth moving, so I'm going to go ahead and move forward. We're still dealing with this dumbass audio delay. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Max Griffin taking on Michael Morales. And this is a fight, Luke, that I feel I am so jittery about. This feels trappy to me. Max Griffin +200, -250 for Michael Morales. Michael Morales is so slick, man. He's so smooth on the feet. He's tall, he's lanky, he's long, he's younger. Like, I love Michael Morales. This kid is so slick. But Max Griffin, I want to reference Neil Magny just one more time, Luke. He's turned into a Neil Magny type. He'll do whatever he can do to like fight his way into a fight. He's got decent power. He's got decent wrestling. He will grind on you if he needs to. He'll pin you up against the cage. He'll take you down. His fights recently have been unimpressive, but he's 4-1 in his last 5. Like, he's winning these fights. He's kind of having a late career resurgence with wins over Ramiz Brahimaj, Keenan Song, Carlos Condit, Tim Means. His last 2 fights have gone to split, but like, he fought Neil Magny, the guy I'm literally comparing him to, lost via split decision, and then won via split over Tim Means. Like, he's doing everything he can at this stage of his career, and I can't really blame him. He's got kind of the whole package. He's 37 years old. I like Max Griffin and I like what he's doing, but I feel like these gatekeeper guys, they kind of float along at a certain point and then they fall off, right? Like the UFC keeps pitting them against up and comers. They keep pitting them against contenders. And it's because they know that they've kind of tapped out at their ceiling. And I think that's what's happened here. Michael Morales is so long. He's so fast. He's 24 years old. We know that your age gap is really like the tipping point where you hit that 10-year age gap. The younger fighter wins more often than they lose. This kid is still undefeated. I thought he was really going to struggle with my guy, Adam Fugit, and he did. But you know what? He fought that man to the verge of destruction. He knocked him out in the third round. He got pushed, and that's the kind of fight that's going to make a kid this age better. Is he ready for Max Griffin? I'm not sure. I don't think I'm laying this price tag on Michael Morales. It's another spot where I've got to pick him to win, Luke. I think he's going to win this fight one way or the other. Is he going to knock out Max Griffin? I don't know if he's going to knock out Max Griffin. This might be like a split decision type of spot where the young kid gets the nod because Max is incredibly difficult to put away. I'm going to pick the young guy, but I'm not touching this fight from a betting perspective. What do you like here?
So my opinion is kind of on how you rounded out the fight. I think this is going to be a close 29-28 type of decision. With that being said, I don't understand why Max Griffin is a plus 205 underdog in this fight at all. Really? Like, I understand that he's 37 and I think people sometimes they get so hung up on age, but they don't understand the context. Like, there are certain people that are in like their late 30s or early 40s that like, all right, there is clear downward trajectory from them. They're starting to get knocked out more. They're losing back-to-back fights, you know, where you can like evidently see someone's declining. I think that's like completely the opposite with Max Griffin right now. I think at 37 years old right now, we're actually seeing the best Max Griffin of his entire career, to be honest, in terms of how he's performing. He's just one of these guys that like doesn't always separate himself much, which is why you see a lot of competitive fights. But you can take that pro or con for him. Like, really the only guy that Max Griffin has fought in the UFC that has just really utterly whipped his ass pillar to post was Colby Covington in his debut back in 2016, who we obviously know how good Colby is now and has, you know, fought for world titles and whatnot. So I think that's very, very forgivable. But like all of these other fights, like even in his fight against Thiago Elves that he lost by split decision, he got absolutely robbed, you know, in Brazil. He's going 29-28 with a guy like Zaleski dos Santos, who's a savage. If he didn't get dropped with a head kick by Alex Morono in one of the rounds, that fight could have went very differently. His fight against Oliveira could have went either way. You know, he's a guy that's going to consistently fight close, but he also has a ton of power. The guy's got knockdowns in his last 4 fights, and I think 8 total knockdowns within the UFC. So despite the closeness maybe with Griffin, the guy's got power. He lands 1.6 takedowns per 15 minutes. He stuffs takedowns at 71%. He's got good cardio. He's tough. And this Michael Morales guy, like, I like him generally as much as most people do, but not nearly as much as everyone. Like, I thought his most impressive W was probably against Veretennikov on the Contender Series, but him knocking out Trevin Giles, who just ran into a punch, is kind of meaningless to me. And Trevin Giles is a bonehead. And Adam Fugit is just not a UFC caliber fighter who is actually like really competing on minutes and striking exchanges like throughout the bulk of that fight. And then he got clocked later on. That was also a short notice spot. So with all that being said, I don't have a passionate opinion on Griffin winning the fight. What I do feel confident in is saying that this fight is probably going to be very, very competitive. And if I think a fight is going to be very, very competitive and I'm getting one fighter at plus 205, who's more battle tested, who's more experienced, has proven a lot more, who's in the better part of their career, this is honestly one of the easiest bets for me to make on this entire card, just because I think the line is categorically off. So as long as Max doesn't die here, which he's only been, I don't think he's ever been knocked out at distance in his career. Like I said, Colby pounded him out on the ground, and then Morono kicked him in the head, which he recovered from. But Griffin's been a very durable fighter throughout his career as well. So if Morales doesn't knock him out, I don't really see how he covers a 70+% implied price tag here. I think the line's ridiculous. Give me the vet lesson, Max Griffin.
I'm with you, Luke. I'm with you. I love it. I love it because I bet on Adam Fugit in his last fight, expecting him to go ahead and show wrinkles and show this kid the ropes. And he fought a very competitive fight in that one and got finished in the third round. But by the way, there will be no Adam Fugit, what's the word? I don't even know. You're not allowed to insult Adam Fugit on my podcast, Luke. I have fancier words to speak than that, but I can't right now while my brain is fireballed the fuck up. So you're not allowed to besmirch Adam Fugit on my show. But I love Adam Fugit. I get the angle. I totally get it. I'm going to pick the young kid to go ahead and win the fight, but I think this line is bonkers. I think it doesn't make sense whatsoever. Max Griffin is more durable. He's tougher. He's more battle tested. This fight is probably going the full 15 minutes, and I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if Max Griffin wins this fight. So I actually think you made a damn good bet. Like if you're just looking at like betting odds and betting a wide line, this is kind of the obvious one here on the card. I don't know what's keeping me off of it. I guess you guys know I'm more of like a gut feel better than I am necessarily than like a, numbers type of better. And I think that's why, like in the back of my brain, I feel like Michael Morales is still going to get his hand raised on Saturday. So as much as I want to bet that plus 200 on Max Griffin, I still feel like that's going to end up losing. And like, I know just pick winners. That's been working real great for everybody here in 2023. But that's why I haven't quite pulled the trigger on this one, Luke. I don't know. Maybe I'll get to it when I'm a little bit more sober. I probably should join you on Max Griffin, but I pick my guys. You know what I mean? Like I've got my fighters that I trust and the guys that I don't. And Max Griffin has not fallen into the trust category yet. So we'll see if I get there over the course of the week. What we've got going here, folks, 158 likes on the show. We've got 2 more fights to talk about. I've got to pee so bad you guys don't even know. But what I'm going to do for shits and giggles, we're going to put this bad boy on a timer. We're going to give you one more shot because I know those of you in the chat that are clearing for it here. You know what we're going to do? Half shot. See that? Half shot. That's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about these last 2 fights. Damir Ismagulov taking on Grant Dawson. Oh, I'm fucked up now. That was not a good idea. Damir Ismagulov is one of the most well-rounded fighters we've ever seen, Luke. This guy is absolutely incredible everywhere. Grant Dawson, he left Glory MMA. AT&T has seemed to be doing wonderful things for him. He won his last fight by 3rd round TKO. In fact, you see this guy winning in the 3rd round a lot. Like that relentless grappling pressure that Grant Dawson has just seems to destroy people. He's got one loss, and it's by knockout. And he hasn't lost yet in the UFC. Like he's got that fight with Ricky Glenn that raised some big time question marks where he gas dumped in that 3rd round and almost got finished, got 10-8'd and drawed. But since then, he's rattled off 2 back-to-back round 3 finishes. And let's look at this. 3 of his last 4 fights, Luke, he's won by round 3 finish. Sprinkle the round 3. Like that seems to be what this guy is capable of. I don't want to disrespect Damir Ismagulov because he's 24-2. He's only 32 years old. Technically, he's still in his prime. And he just did such an amazing job of holding down Arman Tsarukyan, a guy who's potentially championship caliber, a guy that we've talked about for a long, long time. You know what he did with Arman Tsarukyan? He actually held him. I've got the numbers written down here somewhere. He held him to 7 takedowns on 21 attempts, Luke. 21 takedowns. If there's ever a guy who's going to deal with the offensive wrestling game of Grant Dawson, it's going to be a guy like Damir Ismagulov. And if Grant Dawson still has that issue where he can't quite measure up his cardio and he gas dumps in the 2nd or the 3rd round, Damir Ismagulov is the guy that's going to be able to get him out of there. This is a pick'em price tag for a reason. I'm actually having a real hard time with this fight. -110 on both sides. I lean ever so slightly to Grant Dawson being able to lock up those first 2 rounds and then survive that 3rd round and get through this thing. But I absolutely understand everybody jumping on the Damir Ismagulov side and being like, look, this guy's shown us that he's nothing but championship caliber. He's going to be able to defend these takedowns. He's going to be able to stop this offense and potentially take advantage of Grant Dawson when he's not able to keep that pace going. So Yeah, man, you could talk me into either side of this fight, Luke. You really could. I'm going to pass this fight, but I'm going to be watching it very, very closely. I lean Grant Dawson, and as much as I say Grant Dawson round 3, I lean Grant Dawson by decision because I think it's really hard to finish Ismagulov. What are you doing on this fight, man?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one for me because I've been an Ismagulov like truther like for years. Like even when he came into the UFC from like M1, I was like, this guy's going to be a top 15 guy at 155 just because he's so well rounded and there's not really one area he has an overt deficiency in. But we did just see him get kind of exposed in his last outing, obviously by a very talented guy in Arman Tsarukyan, but a guy who more or less decided he was going to just go out there and volume Russell Ismagulov and was able to sit there and pick him up and dump him and just stay on him relentlessly. That is really the only thing that has beaten Damir Ismagulov today. Technically, I think he has one other loss, and that came, I think, a lot earlier on in his career. But my point is that's kind of exactly what the game of Grant Dawson is. He's going to just go out there and spam takedowns in volume. He's also a guy who's in control time positions for over 60% of his overall fight time, which is just an insane stat. And Dawson, unlike Tsarukyan, this might ruffle a few feathers. Dawson's actually a better submission grappler than Arman Tsarukyan is. Where Arman's better is Arman's obviously a much better striker than Grant Dawson is, and that's where the obvious merit to Ismagulov is in this fight. He is a much, much better striker than Grant Dawson. I make no bones about that, where Dawson is going to be in some troubles when this fight is standing. But if Dawson just kind of goes out there and does what he usually always relentlessly does and just pursues a high volume of takedowns and can just duplicate what Tsarukyan did in the last fight, I don't think he's necessarily going to have as much success as Tsarukyan did, but I think it's probably going to be closer-ish. And I think he's probably more live to submit Ismagulov than Tsarukyan. We did see Ismagulov get his back taken 3 times in that fight. But yes, anybody who's on Dawson's going to be holding their breath, when this fight's on the feet. But I'm personally one of the people that did gobble up some of the plus money on Grant Dawson in this fight. There is not many guys I would look to bet on against a guy like Damir Ismagulov, but I think Grant Dawson fits a blueprint, at least at plus money, for me to justify some value. So give me Grant Dawson. And the last thing I will say too, with what some people were saying in the chat, that is one thing that does concern me with Ismagulov a little bit. Like he briefly retired and then he came back. So and then after coming back, he looked like dog shit. So I don't really know what the deal is there, because apparently he had some bad health issue or something. I don't know. To me, that's just kind of weird with Ismagulov, but Dawson plus money is how I'm going here.
Luke, I'm glad you mentioned that, man. I was going to ask about that. I didn't realize that Ismagulov had retired. And those of you who listen to this show, if I think a fighter is retiring, it's one foot in the grave. They do not come back the same way. If they're ready to hang it up, if they've mentioned they're ready to hang it up, if they've already hit that R word, even if it's mentally, they're done. And you've got a young, hungry future contender staring across the cage at you, and you already decided you were done with the sport 6 months ago. That's a massive red flag to me. I am far more interested in the Grant Dawson side than I was before. And I was going to ask if anybody could confirm that was happening. Somebody tweet at me on Twitter and let me know so I can look when I'm sober and see if that's a thing that actually happened. Because if Ismagulov has already hung it up, then that's definitely a thing that I want to look into. Martina's asking, do I trust Tipsy Clint with my bets, or should I wait until Friday to balance my bets? And Ethan lets you know that Tipsy Clint, trust him if you want to hang from the rafters. And I couldn't agree more. You guys are getting a compromised Clint on the show here today. So the analysis from Luke is far more trustworthy than anything you're hearing from me. What I can tell you is the bets I made when I was sober are in the main event, which I'll tell you here in a minute. And then I did go ahead and parlay my girl, Gato, and I parlayed her with Jalen Turner next week. This week is actually really tough, in my opinion, Luke, when it comes to betting. A lot of these fights are really close, and a lot of the numbers are almost superficial in the fact that I feel like they're really tough to bet. Luana Carolina is a lean that I've had. So again, you're not talking to Tipsy Clint. I remember that Sober Clint is interested in Luana Carolina. We'll see how high that line goes. But this card is really tough when it comes to a betting perspective, just in general. So be careful this week. Be careful. Not only are you listening to Tipsy Clint break down the fights, but this is a tough card to begin with. So maybe I should have picked a different show to go ahead and drink. Regardless, it's main event time. Thank you all so much for sticking with me for the 2 hours. Luke, thank you for bearing with me through the drunk stream, because this has been tougher than most of my other streams to get through, but we're almost there. It's main event time. We're talking about Sean Strickland taking on Abus Magomedov, and I'll tell you guys right out the gate, I already bet on Magomedov. I love Abus. This guy is my guy. He's got long, crisp striking, power in his hands, that front kick up the middle. Like, we absolutely knew he was going to destroy his last opponent, and it killed me, Luke. It absolutely killed me. I've been hunting on the dog money on Dustin Stolfus for his entire UFC career. The guy is underrated. He's got a solid grappling. He's physical. He's strong. He can win UFC fights, and I've been hunting for that opportunity to cash a ticket on him. I bet on him against Rodolfo. I bet on him against Gerald. I bet on him against Dwight. Thank God I got my money back against Dwight, because he was live against Rodolfo and then choked in the third round. He was live against Gerald, and then he choked in the third round. Finally, I got my money when he beat Dwight Grant. So, like, I love my guy, Dustin Stolfus. But when they matched him up against Abus Magomedov, I went, this is a death sentence, Luke. I knew for a fact that Abus was going to tear through this man like paper machete, and he did. So this is a big, big jump in competition. But this guy's been around forever. I made notes on this guy's life. You know, the last time I talked about it, he was born in Dagestan. So he's got that Russian grappling base, that background. But he moved to Germany when he was like 15 years old, Luke. So, like, he's got that like base level wrestling. And then his parents took him to Germany and he started striking. He started striking at a super young age. So he can wrestle. He can grapple. He's not quite as good as the other Dagestanis when it comes to that pure grappling offense. But his striking is nasty. He went to the PFL. He competed damn near for $1 million. That win against Saint-Denis has aged extremely well, because Saint-Denis has done very well over at the PFL. Speaking of which, I could do a whole podcast on what happened, the bullshit that happened in PFL this past weekend. I probably need to revisit that. But he ended up taking a loss via KO in 2018 to Luis Taylor, the guy who ended up winning the entire PFL tournament, the $1 million. And he had to hit the reset button. He fought a guy who literally was 0-0 in MMA. I mean, like, he had some pro boxing experience, but he was 0-0 in MMA at like 22-4. He took the biggest tune-up fight in MMA history, Luke. But he got back on track with it. And since then, it seems like he's finally found his groove. He hasn't necessarily had the easiest path to success, but I think he's got that ceiling. I think he's opportunity to win big fights. What we've seen from Sean Strickland is he has horrific fight IQ. He stands in front of you. He just wants to fight. He will pump a jab and a 1-2 in your face, and that's it. He will roll with your punches and try to stay alive and just keep punching you until you give up. That's Sean Strickland, literally every single time we see him. And what happens is he either wins a close competitive fight or he loses a close competitive fight. He lost to Jack Hermanson by split. He narrowly defeated Jared Cannonier, a fight that a lot of people... I'm sorry, he lost to Jared Cannonier. He beat Jack Hermanson. I'm mixing those two up. That's the fireball talking. But you guys get my point. He won a split against Jack Hermanson. He lost a split to Jared Cannonier. Both fights could be argued either way. But the one that really jumps out is Alex Pereira. Now, I know Alex has that left hook from hell, but this guy knocked him out clean in the first round. You know why? Because he has 0 fight IQ. He stands right in front of you, and he continues plodding forward and punching you in the face and hoping you'll go away. I think Abus has the power to make this man pay. He's just 32 years old. He's in his prime. He's got 14 wins by knockout. He's got a variety of offense. He's got hooks. He's got straight punches. He's got the teep kick. He's got that front kick up the middle that he absolutely clocked Dustin Stolfus with. I know there's a little bit of recency bias on this one, but for me, I've been watching Abus for a long time. It's not recency. I'm not looking at what he did at Dustin and going, oh, he can probably do that to Sean. I've dug into this guy and I've looked back at his past. I saw how he out-grappled Saint-Denis, and that type of wrestling offense that can be mixed into a game plan, I think can actually have some upside against a guy like Sean Strickland that really doesn't come in with a game plan. And what we've seen from Sean Strickland is the UFC seems to be using him as a stepping stone. He's fighting other contenders. They want guys like Jared Cannonier, Alex Pereira, Jack Hermanson. They want those guys to get by him because he's limited. I think we've seen the ceiling of Sean Strickland, and we've got a very close competitive fight. And I know Sean Strickland has more experience at higher level, but I think Abus has the skills to go ahead and take advantage of him. And I think he's got the skills to go ahead and beat him. And frankly, if you're going to stand right in front of this guy, I think he'll knock you out. So I took the opportunity, Luke. I've got plus 150 on Abus Magomedov. 1 unit. This isn't like a 5-unit bomb. I'm not the most confident in the world. I'm going to take the dog. I think he survives Sean Strickland's offense. And honestly, I think he knocks him out. I'll take the plus money. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a phenomenal main event. It's honestly one of the more interesting bookings too, because obviously Magomedov only had the one UFC fight against Stoltzfus, which, he kicked him in the face or whatever, 20 seconds in. But that's like his only fight within the last 2.5 or 3 years. And now they're giving him a top 10 guy in Sean Strickland. So I think that definitely shows not only a top 10 guy in Sean Strickland, they're a 5-round main event in his second UFC fight. So I think that definitely shows what the UFC thinks about this guy as well. And I'm relatively high on him to boot. I guess a big thing for me within this fight, though, is the strength of competition, really outside of Saint-Denis. I don't really think he's beaten anybody of merit. And I think one of your boys, Evan, in the chat made a really good comment in saying that Saint-Denis used to be so easily outgrappled which is very true, because when Magomedov fought him in 2018, his takedown defense sucked, where if you look at Saint-Denis in 2022, 2023, that's a dude that has just gotten so much better in the last 5 years. He's almost a completely different fighter. So, that's his best win against a not great version of Saint-Denis. But I think everything you said is very correct, though, Clint, in the sense that I think the guy's very, very well-rounded. He doesn't wrestle very often, but he is capable of wrestling, dangerous power, really nasty guillotine. He's just a really dangerous dude overall. And, dangerous guys have kind of given Sean Strickland some issues at points. With all that being said, it is a step up in competition for Magomedov. And the one thing I don't like about Magomedov is he can be a little bit lower volume. And the thing with Sean Strickland is just going to sit there and spam volume over the course of 25 minutes. Sean Strickland's also 3-1 in 25-minute fights, where Magomedov hasn't been a guy to go out there and, win a ton of decisions out there throughout the course of his career. Not that he's incapable of doing it, but this will be his first 5-round fight, fighting against a guy who is going to push a different level of pace that Magomedov has never seen before. So I think Magomedov probably has to knock him out within this fight to win, because I think he's going to really struggle to keep pace with a guy like Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland's incredibly difficult to take down and outgrapple at the same time too. So if I was on the Magomedov side, I'd probably be more looking to inside the distance KO type of stuff. I think Sean Strickland, decision only, could be interesting as well. So we'll see, but I don't know. I think making Strickland the favorite makes sense. Strength competition, more trustworthy over a 25-minute fight, but I'll probably be staying off it.
That's fair, Luke. That makes sense to me, man. It absolutely makes sense to me. Making him the favorite based on strength of schedule I don't think you could do anything else but make him the favorite off of strength of competition. We've seen this guy fight literally the best of the best of this division. It would be disrespectful to make him the underdog. That said, I think this is a pick'em fight on paper. I do think that Abus has all the skills and tools that you would need to beat a guy like Sean Strickland. And of the guys that are at the top end of this division, I think that Strickland has the worst fight IQ out of all of them. Like, I love Chris Curtis. You guys know I'm the biggest Action Man fan on the planet. Zero fight IQ. Like, these guys just go in and they punch. That's the end of the story. They try to just take you out with pure force. And if they can't do that, then they lose against the guy who will play the game, the guy who will play to the judges, the guy that will mix their MMA offense up. And that's what I think we've got in Abus. So I get what you're saying. It makes total sense to me. I'm going to roll the dice. I think that Abus has a higher ceiling than Sean Strickland does. I think he's more intelligent than Sean Strickland is when it comes to a fight IQ sense anyway. And we'll see how it goes. You know, he might end up getting jabbed to death like Sean has done to so many people before him. But the one thing that really just like jumps off the page to me here at this fight is that Sean Strickland has absorbed insane amounts of damage over the course of his last 4 fights. 4 of his last fights, he has absorbed over 100 significant strikes per minute, Luke. Not per minute, but just in the fight. Over 100 significant strikes over the course of a fight in 4 of his last 5. And you know what the one fight that he did not absorb 100 significant strikes is? Yeah, that's the one he got knocked out. That's Alex Pereira. That's the one where he got left hook from hell and got severed from his consciousness. So, like, as much as we got to give these guys credit for, like, their toughness and their ability to take damage, it wears on you eventually. Eventually, it takes a toll. Does it happen in this fight, or does it happen 2 fights down the road? Quite frankly, I can't tell you. We never know. It's hard to predict that kind of thing. But with somebody that hits hard like Abus does, I'm going to roll the dice. I'll take the plus odds. I think he clips Sean. I think he's able to knock him out and put him away here in this spot. Folks, that was a very special, super long edition of the Die Hard MMA Drunk Cast there for you. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening and hanging out throughout the course of the show. I promised you guys another shot at 170 likes. We've got 165. So if you guys just want to like punish me on the way out the door, 5 more likes, I'll do a shot for you at the end of the show. But we've got to give a massive special thank you to Luke for putting up with my bullshit and hanging out with us as long as I've been drunk on this stream, because this show is normally a whole lot shorter than this. And not only did he put up with me, but he gave you guys very factual information, very strong betting angles, and we love him for that. So make sure you follow our guy Luke, Sparring with Reality Betting on Twitter. Luke, my guy, if you've got shows coming up, if you've got a place where people can support you, now's your chance. Feel free to have the floor, let people know where they can support you and what you've got going on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. We definitely made it quite a long show for 12 fights. I think we gave.
I can hear you, Luke. What happened? What the fuck? I didn't touch anything. I can hear you again. I hate this thing.
That's insane. We make it right to the end of the show, and now.
I literally, you guys, I've got 2 tabs open. I have StreamYard where I can control who's in my show, and if I want to, look at this. Look at this. I can kick Luke out. I can take him out of the podcast. I can do whatever I want in StreamYard, and I should be able to hear my guest, and I haven't been able to hear him for an hour. I have a second tab open listening to our show on a delay because you guys can hear Luke just fine for God knows what reason. I have a second tab open to listen to Luke, my own guest, on a delay, and now it's working. I haven't touched anything, Luke. I haven't hit a single button this whole time. Now it's working.
What can you do? Hey, I think we figured out a pretty good workaround for it. What can you do?
It'll work. I'll take it. Luke, the floor is yours, my guy. Go for it.
Yeah, you guys can just check me out on Twitter, like Clint said, SWR_betting, usually pretty active on there. So you guys can shoot me a follow. If you're interested in my breakdowns, bets, content, all that stuff, dailyfanmma.com, sparringwithreality.com. That's where I put all that stuff up, working with the team over there, Brett Apley, Technical Tim, Gordo Gambles, all those boys and love throughout the community as well too. So yeah, dude, fun show. Like I said, hopefully can cash some tickets, definitely on the opposite side of some stuff. So hopefully we gave the people some good info this week.
Pink Fred says, Clint, please have your white tweet at bedtime. Let us know you're okay. I'll be sure to ask her to do that, Pink. I can't make any promises. Luke, thank you for hanging out with me through this absolutely insane, ridiculous show. You guys, okay, normally I'd throw you a bone. You're short on the likes count, and I can't handle another shot. So I would throw you another bone. I would give you one more on the house, but seriously, I'm going to pee myself if I do that. And I'm going to just have an awful day tomorrow because I'll have the worst hangover of all time. So no, you're not getting a free shot on me here tonight. Thank you all so much for sticking with me through this show. It was a fun one. We don't do the drunk shows all that often because they tend to spiral out of control. But this was a great time, folks. Thank you very much. Oh God, Luke. They got there. I told him 170. I will do a half shot. I will do a half shot. You guys, the best part about this is you guys are not even going to get to see the fallout of this shot. I'm absolutely fucked right now. There you go. That's all you get. If I tweet anything later tonight, I cannot be held responsible for the things I say on that handle. Follow me at Die Hard MMA Pod. Make sure you follow Luke, Sparring with Reality Betting. Him and those guys are doing awesome content. Guys, do me a favor, like I mentioned before. Go check out Bet Openly. I will put a link in the description below. I already put it in the chat before. Let me go ahead and fire it in the chat here one more time. Seriously, if you guys made me drink this much and you don't hit the link to Bet Openly, what the fuck? That's not cool. So hit the link. Make sure you go check out Bet Openly. Thank you guys so much for all the love and support. And my God, let's roll. Let's keep the heater going in 2023. It's been a good year. We're having fun. I like our spots on Saturday. And God forbid, just avoid those landmines because this card is tough. This card is really, really tough for betting. We'll see you Thursday for the total takedown, Friday for the undefeated post-weigh-in show. And that's if I survive the night tonight. So I love you guys. Good luck. Let's roll.